difficulties. So I will call this meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Willington Board of Ed at 7:05 on December 11th, 2018. We are happy to have people in the audience who are welcome to speak. If you would identify yourself by name and address. We give everybody 5 minutes each. So if you're here and would like to say something to us, no matter what your age or interest in the education of Willington, we'd be happy to hear from you. Okay, seeing no takers yet, we do have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. If you have some persistence to last to the end, we have another opportunity for present to speak. And if you're shy, you can always write us a note or an email. Okay, moving on to communications.
We actually, I just got an email today from a student who's a freshman at Kent. And she wrote a very glowing letter to her teachers about her experience and how she's prepared for what she's doing at Kent.
Kent being the
private school, and she's doing extremely well. I would list her courses that she's doing as a freshman, and you would be floored. So she was just talking about how she was prepared, and she's doing well, and wants to come back and she put in quotes, be a student teacher of sorts to come back and help while she's on break from Kent. But it was just something that I thought was really important, and Ken shared it out with his staff. So.
Okay, moving on to number 4, Board of Education Chairman's report. Since we had a special meeting last week, I have nothing to report. So we're going to move on to number 5. Might be our fastest meeting all year.
All right, the room's going to empty after we're done with this too. So, we have two friends here in the crowd, 2 of our students that earned the Superintendent's Award, 2 8th graders. We have Olivia Tolley and Connor McAfee. You guys can wave, hi, 8th graders. And I'm going to read something that Ken had shared with me as far as what went out for the night. We had a board meeting that night, so I apologize. I did not get to go to the actual presentation. So basically what this says, 2 of our 8th grade students were recently recognized with leadership awards at the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. Olivia Tolley and Connor McAfee were chosen for this prestigious award because of their hard work, dedication, and ability to bring the best out of other students. I think that's a really powerful line, to be honest with you. That was my favorite part of what I read about you too. Connor and Olivia consistently embody our core values of respect yourself, respect others, and respect the work. Those are the new 3 things for all schools this year. I would like to briefly share excerpts from what HMS teachers had to say about these 2 students. Olivia Tolley. Many teachers in Hall Memorial School would describe Olivia as a focused and self-motivated student in respect to her goals and future aspirations. She has received several awards and acknowledgments throughout her academic tenure at HMS, the most distinguished of which the sole scholar student in 7th grade. Scholar student in 7th grade, earning all A's, it's not easy, and outstanding citizenship for all 4 quarters. Her dedication and her hard work have propelled her to strive for a career in the medical field. What do you want to do, by the way? Just something in the medical field.
Yeah, I don't really know yet, but...
You're only an 8th grader, you don't have to worry about it. And it says, while maintaining her passions for art and swimming throughout her personal life. You need to share something about what an extraordinary swimmer you are as well.
I swim every day.
She swims every day. Keep going.
What's your how many laps?
I like doing sprint events like the 50 and the 100 freestyle. And I've been doing it for a while.
And she's really good. She just won't tell you that. And so is the little one sitting next to her. Also really good. So congratulations, Olivia. Connor McAfee. Connor has distinguished himself to be an exemplary scholar, athlete, and leader in the HMS community. Connor's hard work and dedication over the years has led to his recognition as Student of the Month numerous times. Outside the classroom, he is a positive role model for his teammates on the South Windsor nice hockey team. Usually, you would probably see him with skates on more than anything else, probably, right?
Yeah.
He lives there just as much as he's at school or at home. With his exceptional abilities as a scholar and a leader, the possibilities are endless for Connor. I am sure the members of the board and town will join us in congratulating Olivia and Connor for their work in being recognized for this prestigious award. So they got to go to a dinner where Ken got to get up and speak and share those things. And so just so two of you know, that's a really big deal. And I don't think either one of you are the type of individual that's going to go, talk to your friends and brag about it just because it's not you. But you should be really proud because that is a really big deal. When you get recognized with something like this, it's about you. It's about the decisions you make on a daily basis, and we're really proud of you for that. So keep up the good work, especially when you're impacting friends. You have a lot of power, probably more than you know. All right? Do you guys want to, Connor, you want to say anything?
Nothing to say.
Nothing to say. That's
Words
so,
right there.
Humble folk.
yes.
Please join me in a round of applause. Congratulations to all.
Congratulations.
We got the phone, I was in the office when Ken called to let them know, and it was really funny because both parents are like, well, they kind of mentioned that they were getting an award, but didn't quite say how big a deal it was. And it was pretty amusing. So you guys do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting, so thank you for coming, and we told you we get you out of here fast, so if you want to, thank you so much. Good job. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the parents too for doing an excellent job.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Feel free to come back
You got it.
anytime you want.
Thank you.
I'm all alone again.
You're our biggest fan club, Mike Troy. Okay.
Love that stuff.
Yeah, very nice.
It is very nice.
They're both really good kids.
That's really good. Exactly. All right, B. School visits January. I told you this would be postponed until we had 2 new administrators. Hooray, we have 2 new administrators. Contracts are signed. They're starting January 2nd. So I have gone and I'm going to throw a couple dates at you. If you want to think, I tried to pick something. I talked to Ken and I talked to actually Patty at Center School just to see if there was something going on. The purpose of these site visits is just in small groups to go and walk the buildings and talk about some of the amazing things that are going on and share some of the things that we also need to improve upon and put some of those things out. And it's not about improvement being about teachers, it's more about some of the things that we have for programs or space or some of our limitations of what we currently have. You're going to see Center School busting at the seams. It's one of the things you're going to see. So small groups, this is meant to be in groups of 2 or 3. You'll walk with the administrator, you'll walk with me. And so we were looking at January 16th through 18th as potential Wednesday through Friday. I know there's always some full day meetings going on. I would say, if we can get through the buildings, each building in 45 minutes, and with 15 minutes in between, you're really looking at probably 2 hours max. You can hold me to that. And so
Be in the morning, starting at the beginning of the day.
we can be flexible, yes. So it's got to be a time where we can get into both buildings. Obviously, there won't be any students in center until 8:30 and hall school until 7:30. So
Both buildings the same day.
So the plan would be probably start at hall and then go to center. But I'm flexible either way. Honestly, it depends on what time it is, and depending on what's going on in the building at that time too. So, there's certain times a day where if you go during the lunch block at the middle school, half the school's body is eating. So, if you go during a 5th and 6th grade lunch or 7th and 8th, they're just going to be eating.
So if we go first thing in the morning,
It would be good.
that would be best.
Yes. So.
You want our dates?
So if you don't have to give it to me now if you don't want. If you want to email Brenda, whatever's easiest. I wasn't sure what was going to be easiest.
Yeah, I can say right away, 16th, 17th, anytime I'm flexible. 16th or 17th, whatever works.
Okay, who can do, so just
I
keep
can
going
do
around.
any day.
Any day.
I can do the morning of the 17th, if that works.
And that's the only day you can?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
Fine, I just need to know which one.
which one? Yeah. Herb, any of those good for you?
Yeah, any one of the 3 days.
This is gonna be a surprise to me.
At the present time.
Tracy?
Well, Friday's best for me, but I can just go in late one day if it's right away, because I have groups until 9:30 to 10, then I don't have groups till 2:15, I think 12:15, so
Okay,
I could skip
so
one group.
what, until what time? Because that might,
Well, I'd have to
want
leave
seven?
at like 11:45 would be the
That's-
ending.
But on Friday, would that cause a problem?
Friday, I don't work.
So Friday's
Okay.
okay.
the other days
Right.
though, until 11:45?
Yeah, I mean, I
Or-
usually go in at 9:30, but I can, if it works better. because
She'll miss
everybody
work
else-
if it's not on Friday.
Gotcha,
Okay.
okay.
I'm freest on the 17th, pretty much any time
Everybody
that
likes
day.
the 17th, all right.
Yeah. Friday
I-
is not good. Wednesday's doable, but I have to work around things, so.
I might, that's okay, I think we're gonna be in good shape. I think I can also, if I have to do 2 shifts on Friday, we can do that. But I'll set it up so that we start early and we'll get
You
going.
said the 17th and then
17th.
she's on Friday,
I could probably do 2 shifts on Friday.
so do 2 days.
So we're gonna wait
I'll
until
do
then and
multiple
we'll figure it
days,
out.
I will do multiple days, but you're only gonna have one.
Right.
One period. So what I'll do is,
So-
let me just, I'll take
But
that
I
and
could do either Thursday or Friday.
okay, perfect.
And
All right.
if it doesn't snow the previous
There's,
Friday.
look at, do you see this? This is
Friday,
why I'm wearing
yeah.
this, it's keeping the snow away.
I have something to snow date Friday morning, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. C, I think I mentioned that we were awarded a security grant. We received the grant that Jackie had applied for, I think you signed off on maybe. It was, the amount we got back was about 60%, it's $18,000. The majority of that grant was doors at Hall School, exterior doors. There's a certain list of, items that you can get back. That's one of the items that you can get a reimbursement on. And so we applied and we got the money. We also just applied for round 4 of the security grant. And so we applied for $89,000 worth of items. We would receive about $53,000 back if we get the grant at 60%. The items that were in this round 4 are our security cameras, even though they're not installed yet. As long, you can apply for it, you just can't get any money until you complete it. There's doors and locks that were not applied for last time from center school that are on there. They're already installed, so that would be a reimbursement. The portable radios and chargers, which are critical to our speed of response for any emergencies, those are already on site. And then the Knox box, do you know what a Knox box is? The Knox box is the thing on the wall outside the school. And it's actually on a lot of buildings, and it's a secure box that firefighters have a key to, and they can get a key in and then take our keys. Well, our Knox box was not connected to our alarm system. It is now connected to our alarm system, so what happens if someone gets into the Knox box, it notifies the dispatch center, the 911 center, which is good protocol, that's exactly what you want. And that was a recommendation by the school security team, and so it's done. So that's completed, so we're just hoping that, we receive, again, the 60%. If we do, that money comes back into our budget as long as it was paid for through our budget, which the majority of things are, but then you have to use that money again out towards security-related items. So it's not just shoes, okay? My suggestion, you're gonna hear this down the road when we get to CIP, is that some of this money could be applied towards some of our projects that are considered to be school security related. And then the last thing I want to share, we are revising our teacher evaluation plan. We had a really good conversation, met with union reps, and we had an initial meeting just to talk about the why and what we're trying to accomplish. It's been a few years since the teacher evaluation plan was completed, and now that we've lived it, we know some of the pros and some of the issues that need to be resolved. Some of these things are really simple, but one of the items is the forms that teachers are required to complete. It's the same form for the pre-observation and the post-observation, and it just doesn't make sense. And so we're trying to improve that and also improve our feedback process. We know a lot of research says when teachers get good feedback and it's more consistent and more often, they improve their craft. So we're looking at that. So we'll be doing that through the spring. And then what we have to do is we actually have to submit our plan to the state. It has to be approved. And then we're hoping for a fall 2019 implementation. But that's a joint venture with obviously WEA, the union, teachers, and administrators going through the process. So we're actually pretty excited about it.
We have to approve that new plan.
The board should
We
have.
have to submit it to the state.
We do. Honestly, it should be both. There should be, once we make any changes to it, and I think I shared with this at the meeting, was that we really should come back to the board, and you should learn, you don't need to know all the details of the plan. What you need to know is some of the changes and some of the, the purpose behind some of the changes, so you can see it and understand the pieces of it, and then it would be submitted to the state for approval. Any other questions? That is all I have.
Okay, moving on to the financial report, which is attachment number 1.
Attachment number 1. Okay, so I went through this report again with Donna, and I am going to tell you, I'm meeting with Jackie on Thursday. I am looking at our accounts and feeling, and maybe because I'm a first-year superintendent, but this is a very, very tight budget. So I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at what's still out there. And when you've heard in the past, hey, we've returned money back out of health insurance, or we've returned money back out of this line, I'm not hearing Donna say any of those things right now. And so I'm meeting with Jackie on Thursday just to go through and look at the specific programs, look to see, you may hear from me that I'm going to freeze the budget for a period of time until I'm sure. And the two main areas where we're looking at on here, we know, even though it looks like there's $557,000 remaining in special education, that's not the case. We're probably going to be looking for money in that department, and that would happen through transfers. The money that you, for the most part, that you see encumbered all the way down through pretty much every area are salaries. So if you look at the $1,044,000, it's the majority of that is salaries, and basically that goes all the way down. Transportation, not so much as the buses and sports transportation, but pretty much all the way down, it's salaries. Program 6, the $32,000, those are contractual through stipends. Utilities is electric and heating fuel. So I know where all those encumbrances go, and there's not a lot of wiggle room amongst those things. I think you normally see the fringe benefits line higher, and that is another area right now with substitutes, because we've had a couple long-term subs that have needed to come in that you couldn't have budgeted for, you didn't know about. And when you have a long-term sub come in for a period of time, and you're talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over, X number of weeks, it adds up. That's not built into this budget. So when I say the budget is tight, those are really the two main drivers I'm looking at right now. So my next report to you next month on this, you're going to hear some more, and I know we normally keep things moving along as far as spending goes. We've had some freezes in the past. I'm probably going to recommend at that point we just hold some of our spending until we know for sure we're okay. Because the the money that exists right now, there's some money in really program 1 and program 2. There's not a lot of money in any other program.
So when you freeze, you're not freezing all of your accounts, you can't freeze 1 and 2 or 4.
I can freeze portions of 1 and 2, and so this is where it's different for the way they see it. So obviously salaries, you're not gonna freeze, but any of the items that are supply related, if there's $10,000 left in the supply account, that's important. We're gonna hold that, and if it's critical to instruction, that's where a principal will come to me and say, hey, this is critical to our next unit. We need to get it. That's where we will make a decision. Right now, I approve purchase orders every Wednesday, and we've been moving along. A lot of purchases have been made, but as we've moved forward in the year and we look at the budget and how the spending goes, and it's fluid. It's meant to be a fluid budget, but with special education costs, and I talked to you about I think it's system-wide support, shows that there's a remaining balance of $81,000. That's where you budgeted 17 or 15,000, I think, for students that go to magnet schools, and we just cut a check for, I think, 24,000. So those are some of the overages that are out of our control, but we still have to cover them, and so that's where I'm looking at. So it's not necessarily a program that's being frozen. If it's contractual, we have to do it. But we're looking at, I'm now going line item by line item in the budget to say, can you hold those $2,000 for the social studies account for now? Make sense?
You know, so if we have a freeze going on, and you're very careful on how you're spending, if we end up with extra money near the end of the year, are you going to release some of that, or is the intent to return all that money back to the town?
My intent would really be, if we take 3 months and we're on a freeze for 3, and I'm just giving you an example, please don't hold me to this 3-month piece, I'm giving you an example. If I had a freeze for 3 months to ensure we're going to cover all of our costs, at that point, that's where I would say, hey, we are going to open the budget back up. What did you not purchase that you needed this year that we can get now? And, you know, it's never frivolous. It's not like you have all these choices. It's mostly things that you need for instruction. But that's where I would open it back up, or to say, what do we absolutely need?
Okay.
And I think it's fair to say that if it's this tight now, any one big change means that we would have to go back to the town and ask for more money. If we have an increase in special education costs, we have a student with an outplacement who moves into town, if we have a significant capital expense, you know, all of our equipment, any one of those pieces could go at any day. So I think it's fair for us to say that we are one emergency away from going back to the town to ask for more money.
Yeah, but if we have a freeze and we end up with
Yeah.
a surplus of, say, 50,000, can you go back to the town and ask?
We
If they
won't,
know that we have a surplus of 50,000.
we would use the
because of
50,000.
freeze,
No, we would
then
use
is
the
it
full
possible-
50,000.
Possible for the, I don't know if we could go to the town.
No.
at that point.
But I think the whole reason to have the freeze is so we don't have to go to the town. We don't want to. We don't want to. So if we have the freeze, then there's a chance we'll have a better idea at the end of March what's left. We made it through the winter season, things are still standing,
Right.
you know. So I think it's just an overabundance of caution to let people know that, you know, we're good for now, but
And if we have to move money, you're going to be voting on it.
Yeah.
So if I have to, go ahead, sorry.
But you were saying if we need special ed money, that we would go to the town.
if there is a new unexpected cost that is large. So right now, we're, you know, quite close to the margin. We knew that was gonna be the case when we passed the budget last year. We squeaked out what we thought we could do with the barest margin, without a lot of contingency funds. And should there be some large unexpected expense, I just don't want people to be surprised if you hear that, oh, you know, we need X, Y, and Z that were not anticipated and are not covered by capital budgets, and we need to buy them now to prevent, you know, worse expense and loss later. Those possibilities exist. We hope that will not happen. We will keep our fingers crossed, but, you know, just so that people have that awareness that that's the next possible step should something big come up.
When we approved the budget last time, I think we reiterated the fact that if we need the money, we would go through them. But they might need a reminder, I don't know if anyone has communicated with them, so they know that that's what will happen, what's going to happen.
I think
And
that,
it's not a surprise.
I think that's a wise decision.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any communication with the chairman
Yeah.
or anything, but just to keep them, you know,
I
informed.
may have said it to them too.
Okay.
I think at the last Board of Finance, when I shared about the teacher contract, I also told them that we had a very, very tight budget.
Mhm.
I have a question about, you mentioned the management school.
Yeah.
Came in higher. You talked about trying to contact parents.
Still haven't gotten anything back, which isn't positive to me.
Mm.
Which is positive.
Not
Ah, I was
positive.
gonna say.
Yeah. I haven't
No.
given up yet, but
Those choices are out there, and you can't always figure out why. Okay, moving on to committee reports.
Could I
Oh, I'm sorry.
just- Oh, I just wanted
It's
to
hard.
ask you a question.
We need a
I'm
round
not-
table.
I'm not sure, a round table for all the nights to see each other.
that's right.
I just don't understand that 557,000 in special ed that
That's a good
is-
question.
Would you just explain that a little
Absolutely.
bit?
So we receive, if a student, I'm going to give you an example. If a student goes to an outplacement site, they're going to school at a different school, but we're still responsible for them. That bill comes to us at various times of the year. Sometimes, some places bill you every 3 months, some places bill you half the year, some wait till June. So we fully know that, and sometimes we have to ask them for the bill. We already know there is a large chunk of tuition payment coming out of that. What goes along with that is the transportation piece of it. So there's probably over $100,000 of that amount of money that is transportation related for that student.
So special education transportation is in 03, not in 04?
Correct. If it's
Okay.
special education
Yeah.
related, transportation is in that.
Thank you. That's good
line.
clarification. Thank you.
But, so Stephanie, what was your question? You were asking why is our balance remaining? Why is not all encumbered? Is that, what was your question?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I didn't understand why that is showing that way.
Shows like a lot of money.
When we have, wouldn't you encumber knowing that the bills are gonna come at some point?
You don't know what the bill is yet.
You don't know what it is?
You haven't, so when you go through the process, if they say, you know what, this is why they bill you afterwards, is what happens is, if a student goes out and they go through the PPT process, and they say, yep, they're a good candidate for the school, they're gonna be coming here, they set up their transportation, they set up their school. 2 months down the road, they then have another PPT and they say, this student needs a one-to-one paraprofessional for support. They also need that paraprofessional to ride the bus with them. Your cost just went up $40,000. So that's why we have, and Holly's not here to speak, good for her. But we have a really good grasp and good communication with those placements, so there's usually no surprises, but she goes to those PPTs, she's in regular contact with those folks. She's come to me already this year and said, hey, in the future, there's a chance, and you're gonna see this in future budgets. There's a chance this student could be coming back to us. So maybe now you're just gonna be paying for a paraprofessional as opposed to paraprofessional transportation and
Their school.
correct. So, but the dollars add up so fast in that account, and it's, Herb and I went to the legislative breakfast at EastCon, And this was one of the topics that was discussed, is because the cost of special education is so, you're mandated to do it. You have to provide an appropriate education, but it's expensive, especially when you start talking about outplacement. And, you know, I think that's Michelle's point, is if someone moves in tomorrow and they have a child with special needs who needs a specific school, it's not the Wellington Public Schools, and we're required to pay for it, you have to find the money.
Our challenge is that because we have a small number of students overall, any one or two students that move in or out of a particular needs for services affects our bottom line. You know, if you're in a district 10 times this size, any one or two students does not impact the bottom line to the degree that it does here.
Right, and some of that money is also staffing that's not encumbered yet, because if we have pairs from CREC and EastCon, and they bill us every so often. So Herb just signed some tonight, I think it was half year bills, or that some just came through. So some of those don't come until the end of the year. And they do that intentionally to say, hey, we could say tomorrow, we don't need these two paraprofessionals anymore because students do well, or whatever the reason may be, and they adjust it, and so they bill us at the end. It is a lot of money though.
Other questions about the financial report? Okay, moving on to committee reports. And we have the discussion about committees further under new business. So I don't think we had any committee reports. Moving on
Yeah, we
to,
have, I signed the bills for the month.
Okay.
In the amount of $472,000. So we are spending.
Okay.
The freeze is not.
Yeah.
Not yet, not yet.
Herb's hand is still in action, okay. Then moving on to new business, approved minutes. Do I have a motion for the November 13th minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Herb. Is there a second?
And second.
Elena? Okay. Any questions or comments on November 13th? Okay, all those in favor of voting to approve the minutes from our meeting on November 13th, 2018, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Stephanie, thank you. Any nays? Nope. Okay, motion passes. Moving on to the next, anyone want to make a motion for December 3rd minutes?
You have a motion to approve December 3rd minute?
Thank you, Tracy. Second?
Second?
Kiara, thank you. Questions or concerns about that set of minutes? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the December 3rd, 2018 Special Board of Education minutes, meeting minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Anne, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to D, C, sorry. Review and assign the Board of Education Committee. So there is an attachment in your packet, which is number 4, which are the committees as they existed previously?
Correct.
Yes, because Mary Beth was following.
Correct.
So this was the list of the minutes of the committees previously.
I believe on facilities, it also said the entire board,
Mhm.
and if you're gonna have the entire board, should it be a committee?
Then, no, it's a committee of the whole. and it
Right,
would be
so
just
it'd be a
regular
meeting, so I would just cross that section out.
Okay.
And I'd ask if I could be in the finance.
Mhm. And I think Elena, you had as well?
I would love it.
Yeah. I am perfectly comfortable to be the alternate if any one person of the 3 of you cannot come. You know, I think it helps to have 3 people for a conversation. So in that case, the chair can step in and be the alternate as like the ad hoc add-in. So we'll have the finance committee be Herb, Kiara, and Elena. Was there a question, Karen?
Oh, no, so you would
Okay.
be the alternate.
Yeah, I'll be the alternate in case any person can't make a meeting or, you know, is in Florida or someplace.
Because I
lovely.
remember you saying that you couldn't have 4 people.
That's right. So right now with the curriculum and instruction, I think it would make sense to have one of those folks step off. And Elena, since you're on all three right now, can I ask you not to sit on the curriculum committee?
I would rather be on curriculum instead of finance. How about that?
Except that right now we have 3 people on finance and 4 on curriculum.
What about policy? Did you want to stay in policy?
Yeah, but there are
Okay.
3 people, so.
And I
Right.
would like to continue with policy.
Okay.
Is that done that? I'd like to see it through till the end.
Okay.
As we're-
So, can I just stay in curriculum?
So hold on. So, right. So if you step off of policy and Ann is on policy,
No, I don't step
No.
off the policy.
didn't you just say if you just stay on
No,
curriculum? I thought you meant that would be the only one.
Policy and curriculum, and then finance, I just stay away from finance.
Okay.
Was that what-
The question that I have on the table at the moment, though, is curriculum instruction of how we're gonna reduce that number. So, for curriculum and instruction. Okay,
I could come up with that.
okay, that's where I was going, okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
So
So-
hands off of curriculum?
So Ann is off of curriculum, it remains Kiara, Elena, and Tracy. Okay?
So now Ann is nowhere.
And,
Well, I'm on
no,
policy.
Ann wants to be on policy, and Elena doesn't want to be on finance.
I would love to be, but if it's too much,
I think we should each have a
Yes,
maximum of 2 committees.
Yes, I
so-
agree,
Okay,
so then let me just do policy and curriculum.
okay, so I'll go back on finance
Okay,
then.
thank you.
Okay.
So who's on finance?
You and I and Kiara. Okay, so policy is myself, Stephanie, and Ann. Finance is Herb, Kiara, and myself. Curriculum.
I'm on the policy too.
Yes, you are. Did you?
I crossed it off and didn't put you back on.
Mhm.
Okay, let's try that again. So who's coming off of policy then? We can't have 4 people on policy.
Do you want me to move to finance?
Oh,
That would balance things out. Would you be okay with that?
Sure, I mean,
Okay.
Herb doesn't mind.
the alternate?
Yeah, so I'll go back to being the alternate. Okay, let's try this again.
Yeah.
Okay, fresh slate? Okay, see if this is what we agree on. Policy is myself, Ann, and Elena. Finance is Herb, Kiara, and Steph. And curriculum is Kiara, Elena, and Tracy.
could I be alternate to
You can be
curriculum
the,
as vice chair?
okay, so alternate would be Ann for curriculum, and I'll be the alternate for finance.
Do you have an alternate for policy?
Not yet, give me a second, write it down. Not quite fast enough. Steph, would you be willing to be the alternate on policy?
Sure. What does that mean exactly? Like just that if they're
In-
shy of a 3-person quorum, you come
It
in and...
doesn't have to be a
Try to
quorum.
think
It's
on your
if
feet.
it's,
It's just.
Somebody can't go.
if somebody can't
They
go to
might
a
call you
meeting,
and say, can
we
you?
might say, "Art, if you're free, we'd love it if you could come and be the 3rd person at that meeting."
I'm
but-
writing stat on my
Are
paper.
we allowed as alternate to go to the other meetings but not vote? So that
No,
at
because
least
then
we're
you are,
current
no,
with-
because then it's a quorum,
Oh, it becomes a quorum if there's another
even if you
person
don't
here.
speak,
Okay,
if you're a president in the room.
gotcha,
Right, which is why we were keeping to 3 people per committee,
okay.
right?
Mhm.
We're good?
I think we're
I
good.
don't know about that.
We're trying to keep it to 3 people per committee.
I've always
And if you-
understood every
Would you rather be also
subcommittee
the
meeting
finance?
is an open meeting, it's just like a board meeting.
They are,
But if a member.
they are, and they have to be notified and,
One of the reasons
Yeah.
why I
Public, yes.
joined.
So
I
if
know, I
a
know.
member of the board wants to go to that
That's my
meeting, that's why
second
they can't
most
come.
interesting.
Just sit, they just don't participate.
a question arose to that end at the CCM training that I went to. And the person who was doing the training recommended that you discourage that because even if they don't say anything, if they're in the room, they are a 4th member of this board, and it could be discussed as a potential violation because it would be a quorum of this body. I'm not saying it's absolute, that was one
No, I
person's
agree with
opinion
that.
who was the trainer, and that was the
Yeah,
information that
agree
I
with
had
you.
gotten.
Yeah, but
So, if we ever had anything, all of these committees come back to this board as a whole, None of these make final decisions without representing back to this board. So if there were anything that was that contentious, we would probably have a full discussion at this board as well, if any one of these was like that. This is almost to make our work at this table faster and more efficient by working out any differences of opinion and coming up with our creative solutions in a smaller setting, give us more time, but it's the responsibility of this board to make the decisions as a whole.
No, I agree. It's a little cleaner that way.
Yeah.
You don't have that extra. But the meetings are open.
Yes,
Correct.
and published,
Anyone
yes,
can come in and see.
absolutely, that is true.
I'm gonna have Brenda email each group.
What, you don't want circles and cross-offs
Look at
all over?
mine. I just wanna know if you got it right. I will, just, because I wanna email
Yes.
each group, but I also wanna set some dates up for
Okay.
each group, so they're established, so we know we have some dates set. It will make life easier.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And then will you
and
let
then there
alternates know if we're needed?
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And then there are also ad hoc committees, so any of the negotiations that we do are ad hoc. The discussions we've had previously about after-school and enrichment activities, if that continues or has any additional, that was an ad hoc committee. I don't know if that one will continue to meet, depending upon if there's any other opportunities.
I have a question about the staff negotiation. What contracts are coming out?
So
We did
that
all
was
three this
bringing up-
summer.
Yeah, but we have to do
Oh.
WESS this spring, so
What's the,
that's the classified staff. They only did that one year
what's
contract.
classified?
It's the nurses, there's secretaries in it, there's custodians,
And
paraprofessionals.
teachers, how many years was the teacher?
Teachers have 3 year
So we
contracts.
just finished.
Correct.
And that one's done.
And then next year, we'll be negotiating with administrators, because they had a 1-year contract as well. It didn't make sense to negotiate with a team of 3 with 2 people leaving.
So we should be back on a one contract a year cycle after this and not have to do all 3 in one summer like we did this year.
So Ann and Elena, are you going to be, is that going to remain? Are you
I
going
would be
to?
happy to.
Me too.
Okay, because I would like to establish that after
Are you gonna
the,
get that started?
yes,
Yeah.
after the holidays.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any questions or concerns about committees before we move on? Okay, moving on to D, the 13-month calendar, which is attachment 5
So this is a requirement that we develop a 13-month calendar in December
of our own board meetings.
of our own board meetings. These would be the second Tuesday of every month. That is what you're looking at there.
With the exception of April 11th, which is the
The one
Thursday.
we've already agreed upon that we would
Right.
move to April 11th.
And looking through these, I think none of these are on any holidays,
Wait,
except
isn't-
maybe February 12th.
I can check that out.
Yeah, do you have your calendar handy?
Look at the district calendar,
Meetings,
1920, February 12th is a Wednesday.
No, it's
Wednesday.
fine. That's the,
There's
that's that one president that's not part of President's Weekend Day.
That's a
That's
conflict on the 12th, isn't it?
on February.
I'll look for one.
On February 12th, 2019. There's a conflict with the public meeting on the budget. yeah.
Oh, the budget meeting is that.
BOE
the
budget adoption is public meeting, but that's our regular meeting.
Yeah, but that's when they're approving the budget.
Is that when we're
our-
approving? That's when we're approving our
When the
budget.
finance is whenever you.
Is that our presentation to the Board of Finance?
Representation at that meeting?
No, that's our adoption is February 12th.
So
that's our
that's when
deadline.
we decide what our budget is before we go to the
Right,
Board of
but wouldn't
Finance.
you want to be at that Board of Finance meeting when they discuss it? And,
It is, and the meeting that we're gonna discuss it at the Board of Finance meeting is the one after that, is that correct?
Let me see, it should be on here.
For view of this attachment 6,
Yeah, that's what we're, yeah.
Board of
this-
Ed budget adoption at public meeting is for us, and then our presentation to the Board of Finance is 16 days later, the Thursday, the 28th.
are you thinking there's a Board of Finance meeting that night?
I think there's a public meeting, isn't there?
It could be a Board of Finance meeting, but they're not hearing the Board of Education budget that night. If they're looking
Look
at
at
other
this.
departments.
Right here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. They're gonna hear our budget on the 28th.
And if you
of
go down
February.
to,
Yeah, it does say here February 12th, Board of Education.
But that's
budget
what-
adoption.
That's the meeting,
Our
right,
meeting.
that's us
Public meeting.
adopting our budget at our meeting.
That's our regular.
That's our regular
Are
meeting,
they gonna be
is where
here?
we
No.
vote.
No, just us.
We vote
have to finish
on our budget
so we're
that
ready to present it.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's our final vote on our budget.
Okay.
I put that in because we needed a timeline to establish, and that's our regular meeting
Mhm.
that we had established already, and that will give the Board of Finance enough time from that point on.
And we had to work backwards to get
okay,
those.
so we're all right there then.
Yep, okay.
Good question.
Any other questions or concerns about the list as it's presented on attachment 5? Do I have a motion then to accept the, oh, sorry, Herb, you have a question?
On the April 11th meeting, well,
Yes.
that's not a special meeting, is it? Because this is our.
Once we adopt it on this list,
This is the calendar we submit to the state.
correct, so then it will not be a
So
special
that would
meeting.
be a regular meeting if we
Right.
approve it on that day.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
It'll just be slightly off cycle because it's on a Thursday and not a Tuesday.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns about the dates? If not, I'll take a motion from the floor to accept the 13-month calendar for our regular meetings for next year.
Okay, I move that we approve the BOE 13-month meeting calendar.
Thank you, Herb. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anne, thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion to accept the calendar as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to D, the budget workshop dates is the next attachment, 6. So this is the calendar for our January proposed dates for our budget workshops and which programs we would cover on which dates. We had already double checked these against people's calendars, and Wednesdays were the best options. No date is perfect for everyone, but we will at least have a quorum at every one of those. And we will have time for additional question and follow-up in case any one of us should miss one of those. We can have additional conversation on the 23rd. And if need be, in case we have a snow day, we can always move up to the 6th as well. So we have a one extra meeting window. Other questions or concerns about the calendar?
So these are the same that we discussed last time, right?
Yeah, the only change was
Yeah,
a
right.
correction, I think, was the January 23rd, it said 22nd. It's all, they were all Wednesdays.
We just said the wrong number.
It's correct,
And we have our regular meeting, the 8th, so we'll have 2 meetings that week.
correct.
And then also just, do you know if CIP or other boards involved in the budgeting process know about this and factor it in? Or do you have
This
to-
is done with Don and myself, so we factored in all of this. And so then I built this off of the, going backward.
But we don't know
But
it's
not the
CIP. Right.
Okay,
I don't know if they've established their dates yet,
they will next week.
You could bring this with you.
so.
Okay. What's important on this list is also that they're starting at 6 PM and not at 7, and that some are in this room and some are in the center school library. So keep a hold of this as, of course, you'll get notice of these, but if we're not here, we're in the library. Do I have a
What
motion?
do you mean,
At
what
what
library?
point,
The center school library?
Ah, Senate.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have been more specific, yes, not the public library, the school library
Not
at
the
the
hall
elementary school,
library.
right?
now we're going to discuss the budget on January 9th, the 16th, and 23rd,
Correct,
possibly the February 6th.
correct.
As a board, we're going to approve the new budget.
On February 12th,
Effective on the 12th.
correct.
Is there supposed to be, just say January, where it says superintendent presents budget to board of ed? It just says January, doesn't it?
It's because it's all of these dates.
All right, just clarifying.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the floor to accept the calendar as it's presented?
So,
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, Steph moved and Elena seconded it. Thank you. Further questions, concerns, issues with the calendar? Okay, moving right along then. All those in favor of accepting the proposed budget workshop schedule as presented in attachment 6, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to 9, old business.
So I'm so sorry. I just remember, do you remember last year we had the problem with voting? Do we have a decision how we're gonna do it this year?
So we should probably talk about that more. This probably isn't the right time here. If you have a proposal, let's see if you have some
You know,
suggestions.
I thought you wanted to talk at the Cape convention.
And
Did you find out about that?
we did not get any clarification about the best practices. People do it a little bit differently in different places, but I don't know that there's.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
The question is that last year we did the programs one at a time, and then we voted one at a time, but there was a question about if you don't do them all at once, and you vote for one, but then you want to change it because of a decision that was made in another, which one you vote on first then matters. So is there a way of doing a consensus? And then moving on to the contentious ones, or to answer the contentious ones first, and then you do consensus? So the process by which we would adopt a budget by program is a little bit more difficult. So we were gonna look at the CABE conference, and there was not a clear answer there. So,
Last year when we
Yeah.
voted, we wanted to come back
yeah.
and we couldn't.
Yeah. So we will do a little bit more research and make that at the beginning of the meeting on the 9th. That'll be the first thing we talk about. So we'll add in
What
an
night?
overview of the process on Wednesday, January 9th, the beginning of the budget process. We'll have an overview of the process by which we'll do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wonder if
Okay.
we can do like pre-voting instead of voting, and then if everything goes
We,
smooth at the end.
we will take a look and see what our realm of possible solutions are.
Yeah.
Because we have to make sure that we do it legally, and so we'll need a little bit more information. So we'll have some kind of process orientation at the beginning of the first meeting. Okay, so moving on to attachment 7, the school calendar.
So Herb had asked what holidays you could actually go to school on. And the holidays that we have off are appropriate per law. And basically what the law book says is that school may be held on any holiday provided that the schools hold a suitable, non-sectarian educational program in observance of such holiday. And it excludes out holidays in December and January. And so you can't change those. So, or Martin Luther King. So, you know, I had.
So you could go to school on Labor Day, you're saying?
Correct. As long as you do
That's what you want.
a program, according to this, that you can do a program.
So as long as it's not December or January and you do a proper program, it's legal.
Correct.
Okay.
The program we did was not held on November 11th, which was the holiday where the day, Veterans Day, it was held on the next Friday,
Correct.
which is, Friday.
But that's why I'm proposing next year that we go to school on Veterans Day to do a program at both Center and Hall School on that day. Because right now, I don't know if it means much to them. But those are the days you can adjust.
Is there a interest in doing it partly to come up with the right number of days in school? I mean, like because of the snow day dance that happens every year, or is it purely to teach the kids about veterans?
I think it's a combination of several things. November has notoriously been a very choppy month and very inconsistent because you have in Thanksgiving, you have in conferences generally, you have minimum days in there, you throw in, we used to have a professional development day in there, I think years ago, and then you have Veterans Day, so.
Well, you also have election day.
and-
You go to school.
We go to school that day, so that
Yeah,
makes it
that-
even worse for some certain districts.
Right.
So it was one of the holidays that, I mean, you have a lot of conversations about how to enrich students and what they learn about. And we could definitely do this on a day that's not Veterans Day, and we'll continue to do programs either way. But we felt it was more meaningful if you're giving them a day off that they don't really understand what Veterans Day is all about unless you do a program for them. Unless they have, a direct relative, it's a better way to teach them something and have some community involvement. We've looked at other programs to see who's doing what. Untitled Intermediate School does a big program, and so that's the type of thing we're looking at. I talked to the area superintendents, Mansfield, Ashford, and Columbia there in Region 19, and they are doing the same thing. They're going to be doing programs on that day, and one of them had already done it, and it went over very well. And they had a lot of community members come to their program, and they said it was very powerful.
We have veterans, each classroom invites, we have 2 that are related to the families of the students, and they come on Veterans Day. Plus, we also invite community members that come to an assembly.
We don't have too many opportunities, I don't think, in schools to have community members come into our building for an event like that. And it's one of those events where, one of those opportunities that we can take advantage of it. And watching the response of the veterans that we did have on that Friday was pretty powerful. So it was something that we were looking at, and
What I found from my experience is that the veterans who come to our schools, they do appreciate the fact that it's on Veterans Day, that we honor them, and they come on Veterans Day. So that's one way for them to celebrate with youngsters. That's how, and my school used to have a day off, and then we changed it to that. And we found a very good response from veterans. There were some families who had the same concern you had, where they felt that it could be done another day. So I can see both sides. But from my personal experience, I thought it was really, really good for the kids and the veterans.
Yeah, I can see, the calendar has always been a controversial area for, whether it's a federal vacation or whatever. Veterans Day, however, goes back, well, it was the Armistice Day at one time, to honor veterans of World War I, and it changed and evolved and everything else into an official U.S. public holiday. It's a national, federal holiday, and it is celebrated by many schools across the country. I think that what's happened is like a lot of things, there's a certain amount of patriotism involved, or is being put aside for other things and so forth. And it's true, as Phil says, we provide for it at an assembly program, which is a half hour, 45 minutes or whatever. And maybe that's good for the youngsters and for the veterans that participate in that. But it's a national holiday, like it's like Columbus Day and Memorial Day and things of that kind. It's a day that is supposed to honor veterans, and I think we're kind of, in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily mean too much, but we're kind of downplaying it. It's going to be like a lot of things like salute the flag, which is, and so forth, is something that's going to be downplayed and kind of put aside. You have a little assembly for it, and that provides enough training and education for the kids so they know what some veterans have gone through and so forth. But it's something that I feel very strongly about. I think that Veterans Day should be a day off for them. We can still provide information, in the history classes, social studies classes, so they know what it is. But I don't think they'll ever really realize the real significance of it. The other thing that bothers me too is in the calendar, it's okay to add an extra staff day onto a long weekend, so you can provide for a longer weekend for them to be out of school, and so they have time to travel to whatever destination they're going to, and you're dropping a very significant day, in my opinion. As I said, a budget can be structured, you wouldn't want to structure it, but that's my position, that it should remain, and it has been there in the past. I would prefer that than an extra staff day.
As a day, you prefer it as a day, to remain a day off for the students?
Yeah.
Okay. So the schedule as it's presented here does not have it tied in with a long weekend. It would be a Tuesday, as opposed to some years, depending on how the calendar fell. I know that some years it has been.
It falls on the 11th.
Is it a Monday?
So
It's a
Monday,
Monday.
it falls on a Monday.
It's a Monday this next year.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm looking at, it's only got the 5 days across. I looked and I thought the first column was Sunday. It's not, you're right. You don't have weekends on here, because you don't make your kids go to school on weekends.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. So in that case, because it is on a Monday this year, if it were a weekend, if it were a day off, people might travel. I hear what you're saying now. Okay.
But I think what he's saying is that you're talking about the January day, or?
No, he was talking about the November 11th day.
No, I know, but he was saying how you're attaching it.
This year, we're not
Maybe
attaching.
extra day?
In past years, we have.
I forgot what day it was, might have been the
You're talking about Columbus Day?
August 26th or something.
Yeah, Columbus Day's a good example.
Yeah, it has the holiday and then the staff development day
Yeah,
for Tuesday.
So it's a 4-day weekend.
yeah.
Okay, so we have a proposal here
I
today.
have 2 more items for you.
Okay,
That was just one.
okay, related to the calendar? Okay,
So the October 11th, in the past, we've looked to do, to get a half day of staff development in someplace.
mhm,
We've had them built into the calendar. In 1819, there was one October 5th that is not built into this calendar, and that's one thing that I would also recommend would be October 11th.
So you wouldn't add half a day?
I would make that a half day for students, and we would be able to provide professional development the other half of the day for teachers. Or the other option would be May 22nd, which has never been done before.
it's fairly late in the year to have any benefit to the students.
It's a short day, and a lot of those, when you have those short days with the placement of them, revolves around the teacher evaluation plan and goal meetings.
So
and
is it
goals.
better in May?
So you're either getting your goals here, or you're.
Or you're reviewing your findings after?
But
Okay.
depending on, I would recommend the 11th
Of October.
of October, I would recommend the 22nd.
So you want to add both?
No, I would add one.
Oh,
Okay.
so
I
which
would be
one would you
consistent.
prefer?
October 11th, I would be consistent. And I would also, I wasn't expecting a vote on this tonight because I think it's important once you have some thoughts established, needs to go back to the unions. And you also need to realize that that Veterans Day, if you do change that and you go to school on Veterans Day, that has to be negotiated in one of our contracts.
So right now, if we go to school, we have to negotiate with this.
Correct. Which I've already had a discussion with that union. She knows we're talking about it. And it's, I don't think it's a huge negotiating point.
What does everybody think about
Well,
veterans?
yeah, I don't really personally understand, if they do go to school on Veterans Day, does it mean that they will finish up the end?
A day later.
The day earlier?
Well,
Earlier.
so
A day
right,
early.
so right now, the way the schedule looks is they are attending school on the 11th and they get out on June 11th. If they have the day off on the 11th, then they have to go to the 12th
No,
of
no,
June.
I'm
Well,
talking about
that's
if they do go to school on Veterans Day,
Then
then
they
they
get out
will
on June
finish
11th,
a
correct?
day earlier.
A day.
No, not a day earlier, on the exact day on here.
It's what,
It already
It's on here.
presumes that they're gonna be
Yes.
in school. The
It
calendar
assumes
does.
that they're in school on the 11th,
We're talking about Veterans Day?
Veterans
Yes.
Day, November 11th.
It's
So
not
this
a
is
holiday right
the
now.
attachment is assuming that they are going to school on the 11th.
Ah, okay.
So if we would propose that they have it off, we would have to make up that day on June 12th.
Or we could
Or,
take
remember,
another holiday, like
remember when we said that, June 12th is still optional depending upon snow days. So they're probably still going. They've got 2 more possible weeks after that of up to 10 snow days. So,
and then,
I'm sorry, I
that's
didn't
the
mean to
other
depress
thing
you all this
that's
early
the
in
other
the
piece
year.
that's on the calendar, and for whatever reason, it didn't show up on your
The
version.
snowflakes,
I have a.
they're
I have a-
italicized.
Okay, you can
Yes.
see them, okay, good. But
Yeah.
when
Kiara?
you show
Yeah,
that
go
calendar,
ahead.
it's really clear.
Okay, Kiara?
All right. Now, after having heard her twice already, he feels very strong about that, and I can see his point. I think Herb's point is that by taking the holiday away, we're somewhat diminishing the value of the holiday. So I truly understand now. After your second time, I kind of get what you're trying to say. So if we're gonna put the holiday back, I'm just thinking aloud. Could we do like the staff development on Columbus Day, so take away Columbus Day? So the kids still don't go to school, but the staff would work on Columbus Day? So that will bring us back to the 11th of June, so that we won't lose a day. You know what I'm saying? If we go to school on Columbus Day, which is the 12th of October, not go to school, have the staff development on the 12th.
Make it a 3-day weekend for students, but a
For
regular
student, but a regular
weekend
weekend
for
for
teachers.
So that would still give the student a Columbus, like a day off, but not for teachers. And then keep the holidays on November 11th.
What date are you looking at doing stuff?
You know,
October.
of Columbus Day, instead of
14th and
having a
15th.
holiday for Columbus Day, have a staff development. And then keep the Veterans Day as a holiday,
The 14th, not 11th.
whatever.
That
else,
was the
yeah.
14th.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's,
Yeah,
the
it's the
weekend.
14th,
Yeah.
And the other thing I was kind of wondering about and I guess I'm kind of leaning toward retaining Veterans Day as a holiday too, just because this year it falls on the 11th, on Monday, which kind of seems a little weird for the time to roll this out. When the 11th's on Tuesday or whatever next year, it seems like that would be a good time to say, hey, we're going to do this new thing where we're going to go to school through, Veterans Day and not observe it, and definitely not observe it on the 10th. I think that might be an easier rollout with the families than doing
Right.
it on a year where they may have it off.
I think his point is, it's not like we want to give the families a long weekend so they can go gallivanting somewhere. I think that the holiday has a meaning, and taking it away diminishes the value of the holiday. I think I get it now, what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, there are community events.
not that
and stuff.
I don't necessarily agree totally, but I think it's important, I kind of agree on that side.
Well, this year, the 11th was on a Sunday, I believe, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
So we had the Monday on. So it was fairly significant last year, or this year.
And I know what you're saying about breaking it up one more time.
So we're not gonna vote on this today. This is for a vote at our regular January meeting. So there's still room for public feedback and consideration on this in different ways.
So that would have been my counter proposal,
Yeah,
to do Columbus Day.
So the calendar, every year the calendar looks different because every year, depending upon when the different holidays fall, every year we discuss the calendar. At least 2, if not 3 or 4 meetings because things happen and we look at professional development days. And you're right, the calendar is one of the things that is fairly contentious because everybody has different opinions and, should you make them long weekends, should you not make them long weekends? Should you break up November, should you not break up November? So we all have different opinions of that. I think we've heard from each other about different possibilities and different opinions. But I think that if people feel strongly that they're ready to vote on this, I'll accept the motion, but I would just as soon table this for a full vote at the January meeting unless people feel better? You still have to double check at the.
Yeah, you really should go back
You have to
and share this with unions.
Okay, because you haven't shared this version.
Your position, I wanted to get to a point where you've had enough feedback and you know where it's at. And
But
then
I
can
think-
share some.
I think what we're saying is we don't know where we're gonna vote on this.
Which is fine, so that's why.
So you can go back and get feedback, but we're not gonna, we may or may not go one way or the other, we don't know.
Yeah, but let's consider Kiara's suggestion about Columbus Day. I think it's a good suggestion. It will keep us at the same 11th, June of
All-
11th. And
We all have different opinions
Yeah.
about dates and how we celebrate holidays in different ways. So I think everything's on the table for discussion in January. And you'll bring those points and get feedback from the unions. Fair enough? Okay, so moving on, to the capital improvements project, which although it does not have an attachment on your agenda, is the colorful attachment on giant paper, the follow-up from last week. So thank you, Phil, for doing this in a way that
That's what you were
makes,
looking for.
yes, that's exactly what I wanted, was to be able to see it as it's spread out over time. It's still gonna be a little bit of a challenge to figure out which pieces go with which, in terms of priorities. Can you help us identify which ones are the highest priorities and how you develop this?
So I can walk through, so first thing I'm gonna point out, and I'm surprised no one's seen it yet. I got an email from the architect the day after our meeting on Wednesday. And he noted that the ballpark that he had given was significantly lower than what he thought it was going to be.
Oh, for the HMS.
That's why the roof
It
number
was
is
for
much
100,
higher.
right?
So
Yeah.
he had thought approximately 200,000 for center and 400,000 for hall. They did a Google Earth overview of our buildings, and they can determine square footage of the roof based upon Google Earth.
That's pretty cool.
It is very cool. And so basically what he came back was the number for hall that he thought was a more accurate number was $617,000, and center school was $453,000.
So,
Those two numbers, understand that they have 20% soft costs built into that. Soft costs meaning engineering, right, some of them are. But engineering plans and architect work, and he said that is a standard number that people would put in. Soft costs also account for if you tear the roof off and you find rotten wood deck, you're using that money to replace, to repair. So that is a significant change. I couldn't believe it when I saw the numbers,
The,
but he
the
has,
87 in the left-hand column, the 87,000,
so all the
Does that
numbers,
include a project manager?
that includes the fees for all the architects and the engineer that we need for the plans
And I'm
to.
talking about project manager, in other words, when they start working on it, they have, our representative would be there to make sure it's done correctly.
No. Usually don't have a project manager. The architect gives them, when they bid out on the specs, they're bidding on something very specific, and the architect says they can meet the specs of the plan.
So okay.
All of the projects that you see, the project titles, if it says $87,122 in 1819, that means there is that amount of money that CIP planned for in that year. So yes, there is $87,122 already approved for the Hall School roof
in the current year.
in the current year, and that money doesn't go away. The money that you see, and this is
Does it
how
roll over?
yeah, it doesn't go away. It stays there until the project's used. So the way I kind of view this, and Steph, you can jump in if you think I'm wrong about this. This is the capital improvement. You didn't have a copy of this, but these are all the projects for the town. And realistically, this is how I see it. The only year that matters is the year you're in. Because when they look at this, again, even though you look at, HMS boiler, 60,000 in 2021, when people submit new information, they may go, you know what, that's not important in 2021, it's going out to 22, 23, or it's moving into 19, 20. And that's what you see in here, adjusting on the paper. So I just put the year in there so that you know they had already put some money towards it. They had identified it for another year.
Is that 87,000 already in?
Correct.
There?
It's already there, it's already approved.
So that
So
would
it's
be
set aside.
offset, it would be, the 617 would be reduced by the 87.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And our grant, this is, when you go off to bid, you have to put in the total amount for the state reimbursement project. So the town would have to put in the $617,300, or whatever the exact quote would be. It'd be pretty close to that. And then, once the project is done, then you would apply and you get the grant reimbursement. So the grant reimbursement would be if our percentage remained at 64, and remember, it might go up, it might go down, then your reimbursement would be about $399. So what I did is I just tried to show that if something had reimbursement, that it would come down. So you're looking at, in the first year of projects after reimbursement, you're looking at about $347,000 in projects in the first year, $344,000 in the second year, $110,000 in year 3, $112,000 in year 4, and $266,000 in year 5. Let me explain to you how I laid that out. And I'm going to work backwards. If you look at the orange and you look at year 5, the first thing that you see on there is the $26,000 for the AC for the gym. We don't have it already. We've been living in with it. The system is set up for it. It would be very nice to have it, but there are other things that we would put priority over that. So that's why it's out there. We don't have it. The AC in the upper wing is the second thing down at 110. That's no different. The $90,000 for the poured rubber surface on the playground, there is no insurance savings. It would be nice, but we don't have it already. $40,000 for the whole school generator, we don't have it, and we've been surviving without it. So if you look at year 5 right now, for me, it's in year 5 for low priority for a reason. If you go to year 4, and you go to CES heating project upper wing, $40,000. It's got a medium priority but we've been fixing them currently as we go. If something breaks, we have to fix it, but there are plenty more to do. Hopefully they don't all break at the same time or in the same year. The $79,000 for the windows, they've already put $40,000 in 2 separate years. $20,000 is the labor for that project. That's what the reimbursable amount would be, that $12,900 that we would get back. But again, we have single pane windows. They're not leaking. We have them. They're not energy efficient, but we have windows in place. The AC in the upper wing,
No, paving up the lot.
sorry, I'm not wearing glasses. Thank you. Paving the upper lot, that is already, it's gonna need continuous repair. And if you don't take care of it eventually, it's gonna need more than what's there. And that's why it's medium, because it's already something we have. The locker replacement is low in year 4 because they're there, they're not in great shape. We could put some boards over them.
They're not
But-
a safety hazard.
There are sections that needed a board over the top of them.
Okay.
But honestly, the number of lockers that are there, we could probably take out an entire side, and we would still have enough lockers for the students.
Okay.
The bottom, the HMS gym curtain, 19.7. We only have one class in there at a time right now if it breaks, it's gonna stay in place, wherever it is.
Okay. But you thought that might go up if Parks and Rec?
If they're willing to kick in some of the money, and I just tried to prioritize for our purposes, but that could be something that,
That's all you
you know,
can do.
yeah, correct. So then working backwards, year 3, the CES fire panel, $60,000 medium,
Excuse me,
yes.
on the curtain, if the rec commission goes to the CIP and gets approved for 50% or something like that, can you move that up?
We can move this anywhere we want. This is the administrators and Phil Stevens and maintenance custodians putting them on the paper and trying to balance out. Not, the first go around, I had over $1 million in year 1. We usually get about 150,000, 200,000. I knew that wasn't going to fly. So you can adjust these wherever you want. I also know that Maureen has several projects that she's trying to work on, and so that may not be one of her highest priorities. Year 3, the $60,000 for the fire panel. Listen, if that breaks tomorrow, we have to fix it tomorrow. So it's out in year 3 with our fingers crossed.
What's a fire panel?
It's the panel, and this is just the one in the center, it's still investigating the one at Hall. But the fire panel is what basically sends out the alarms. And if the fire alarm goes off, we know where it's going. But you have to have it. Without it, your fire system doesn't, your smoke heads, all those things don't work.
It shuts down.
Correct. The $14,000 medium is the chip seal for the lower main lot. That center school lot is gonna look like the Hall School lot if we don't take care of it. And so it's out in year 3, that's why it's medium. I left the HMS sidewalk replacement on year 3. This is the snow removal issue. And ironically, Village Springs stopped into my office, Brian, and he said, hey, are you still interested in plowing the front sidewalk? He's looking at seeing if he can plow our front sidewalk towards the building, as opposed to going sideways down the sidewalk. So we had a good conversation about it. So maybe we won't have to remove or change that. It's in year 3 anyways. I wouldn't even propose it this year, but I wanted to have some awareness around why it's on there.
In the same way that you have kind of a placeholder for that sidewalk replacement, is there a placeholder in here that I'm not seeing for the HMS fire panel?
I have not put it in because they're trying to investigate how old it is, because age plays into that.
If at some point you don't know what it is, I would at least like you to have a placeholder in here for that.
Yep.
Because that's the same thing, that if it breaks, we need it right away. So putting it on people's radar, even if it ends up in year 5, I think is important.
I'm gonna just jump in on, now that you said that.
Mhm.
I wanna be very clear about something too, is that these are the projects that are over $10,000. I don't want to put out a message that people think that if you do all of these things, that the buildings are in top-notch shape. You're not changing instructional spaces. You are simply replacing windows. I talked to you last week about the whole school windows, about how they were finding out the steel was broken, they need to be replaced. They're not on here because they're under $10,000. We have a book from MCOR, who we use for our preventative maintenance, and they've identified a load of things that are 36 years old when the book was written, that have a 15-year life, but they're $4,000 a piece. They don't fit on here. So I don't want people to think that this is everything, and those are things that we're gonna either have to put in our budget or put all together at some point, and we're trying to find a creative way to do that. But if whatever that item is breaks, you have to fix it. And it's not budgeted money, so I just wanted to make sure that was
We
clear.
only have 5,000 in the maintenance,
Oh,
in
and
our budget now.
that's the district maintenance line. There is maintenance money within the schools too. The front entrance front entrance repairs is that's all of the pillars and all that, 17,008. And then the sidewalk and, what's that? Low. It's, honestly, I agree, it's the front of the school, it's aesthetic, we want the front of our schools to look as the best we can. It's on CIP already, I agree, but if I have to pick heat over aesthetics, we picked heat. And then medium is the sidewalk landing, which is crumbling. That's the ramp along the right side of the building if you're facing the building. Okay, so now we're getting into more of the higher priority items. If you're in year 2, you're looking at $105,000 for HMS heating project. Those are the 8 units, I think it's 8, within the classrooms. The ventilators, you've got the $453,000. That's the CES roof that's leaking. You just don't have, I don't see how we would have the capacity to do that the same year as the whole school one. You have $60,000 for the HMS boiler, which is in 2021. There's reimbursement on that. You've got the $20,000 for the AC band room, and I want to make sure the reason that AC is on there in year 2 and it's a higher priority, it's medium, and it's not further out, is because it's a security issue. That's why that's a priority. The $25,000 for the chip seal probably should have been done years ago, but it is where it is. So you can see there that the heat in the roof is, kind of the priority. If you go to year 1,
And then at the very bottom first.
oh, sorry, the district AED and town AEDs, they are about Alex just sent me a quote today, he finally got one. They're $2,000 a piece.
What is AED?
It's a defibrillator,
Ah, okay.
and so it's. Honestly, I think they're good to have. You can move that wherever you want, or you could just put it in your budget. Because that $12,000 is not just, that's being presented as a joint approach from town, office building, Board of Education. Library hasn't responded, but we're looking at all those options.
So I'm sorry, so where do you want to place them? In 6 places, because they have 2,000 each? So which 6
Correct.
places are there?
So when I say it's joint, we would have 2 more at Hall School. You would have 1 in this building, and then the others would be in like the library, the public library downstairs. There's 1 upstairs. Alex Moore, the fire chief of WIllington 1, has talked to various people. And I put it in here just to show you that this is something that we're trying to do as a joint venture. All of this money is not Board of Education money anyways. This is the town money. They make the decisions on it. but it's just, you can decide where you wanna put it, or if you wanna
Because
put
we
it.
talked about it.
Yeah, so we can put it just in school, so we're
If you-
responsible for those which.
Correct, if everybody else said, no, we don't wanna do it, and we wanted to purchase one next year, you could put that in your budget. So when the sports teams go out and they're playing on the soccer field or the baseball field, you have an AED on the field with you at all times. The top section, the HMS roof, 617,000, high priority, there's already 87,000 in there. The CES heating project, remember last week, it was a little crazy, sorry. I shared that it could either be 23,000 that we would need for it, or 33,000. After looking at all of the projects, and this was about the upper wing exhaust that Jackie had lumped together with some heating projects, it just makes more sense to do the exhaust now, because the AC is so far out, the windows are so far out, it makes sense to do the exhaust project now. So CIP had dedicated $82,000 this year. We spent $10,000 already out of that project to improve the boiler in center school. It's not really the boiler, but it's the pipes. And then there will be an additional $10,000 that will be used for the project I just discussed, the fresh air exhaust. And then, so that's where the $62,000 balance comes from. And that would, the quote is for $94,000 to do heat only. So we would need an additional $32,000, and that's why it's in year one. That does not include, remember in your paper that I gave you, there was an option for AC and heat, but that was $177,000.
So they're separate, different ones.
No, the
AC's
AC for the lower wing at center school is not.
It's
in
not
there.
on here at all, okay. So the question I have is, we just asked about the HMS roof, the 87,000, if that was in the 617. And you said, no, it hasn't been spent yet, so you would subtract the 87 out of the 617. But now you're saying the opposite for the next line, that you would add the 62 to get to your 97. So you're saying the 32 is the remainder, is
The
it?
32 is, yeah, the 62 is already there.
But if the 87 is already there for the roof, then this 617 number should be lower? Or was that number closer to 7?
I just did the math for you.
Yeah, but I don't care that you did the math as long as it's consistent in the two rows.
Yeah, I had the same understanding, that we're supposed to take 87 off the 617.
That's correct.
17.
So it would be 530,000 in actuality if we get to use the money already in there.
So-
In this case,
Right, so either show this as the 530 something and we add it in, or show this as the full amount and
Or
then we have this or
94,000.
not, and then this should be the 94. I'm just saying that you have to have, you
The
have to use
reason
the
why I
same
left the
approach.
top that one is because it's reimbursable. And I didn't want someone to say, well, why, how did you come up with it, you're gonna get $400,000 back. So I'll change to 32,000. That's the,
Yes,
that was
yeah.
the thinking
Yeah,
behind it.
Yeah, that
yeah,
would be
yeah, I
better.
just want them to be consistent, so,
So
Yeah.
you just want me to change the 32 to 94?
yeah, so that the numbers that are in the
Yes.
project title, no matter how they've set it up, are not included in the colored
Right,
sections.
and whatever, I mean,
Okay.
this is for us, this is not gonna be
Yeah,
submitted to.
but for example, the same thing as you go down, we're gonna have the same question about the phone system, so
yeah,
we'll get to that in a second. So you're talking the heating project, the total cost for the heating project, and the exhaust fan is gonna be
So instead of
94,000.
saying balance of 62,000, just say 62,000 from 1819.
Yeah,
And then use 94,000.
right,
Okay.
okay. We're with you.
The phones,
Yes.
69,000 was the new quote that they had 100,000 in for 1920. That's a high priority because of all of the security features that go along with it. And again, it's in our CIP list, but it impacts, you know, Erica will stand up and say something along with the lines, same lines too. But it's really
So
important.
the 60, it's 69, it's not 169 with the.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the-
so, and again, this is,
so
I
you
get,
could get the security cameras.
Well, and this is why it's a little funny, and why I said what I said before, is because it's in 1920, but that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Because it's not been approved.
Yeah.
So I know they try and space it out, but,
Right, that's for reference, what's in the
What will
project title
matter-
is for reference.
right, what will matter in 1920 is whatever's been approved.
Right. Okay, so 69,000 for district phone system, which would be both schools and this district office.
Correct,
Okay.
yes. And then the security cameras, they have 26,000 in for 1920, the cost of the cameras is 45. This is where the security grant money that's coming back, where I would apply it.
So I'm sorry, you said that joint security cameras joint with town?
No,
The phone system.
The phone
The
system.
phone
is joint.
system, so it means 69,000, it's not just the school budget? No?
No, we're
So
saying,
it's a
we're saying that when they add this to CIP, they don't separate out what's school and what's town, it's just a line.
Ah, okay, so it's not in
So
our
in this
budget?
it's not in our budget, none of this is in our budget,
Okay.
all of
Correct.
this is in the town's budget. So we're just putting a placeholder in jointly
Okay.
with the town to put phones in hall, center, and this building. Right?
Is this project
Is that right?
over $10,000?
yeah, you did,
Right, all projects are.
correct.
Okay,
And the total cost is 69,000
The total cost for the phones is 69,000, correct.
for ours and for the town and
Everything,
everything.
correct.
So I have a question about the roof. I keep holding it, but I really want to ask it. So how many companies did we ask about the possible price for this project? Was it just one company or two companies? Can we throw it there in the market and say, hey, who's gonna give us the best price? Because 1 million for 2 school roofs, that sounds a little bit outrageous. So can we do some bidding process?
We have to. For you to get state reimbursement, there's a very strict procedure you have to go through. And so companies won't come out to you for a project like this and give you a quote unless they know that they've got your business. So what happens is you need a number to go off of to go to CIP with.
to plan.
And to plan with. And so that number, that 617, is your planning number. And it's based upon real costs today and it's from the architect. He knows exactly what it costs per square foot of what you're getting for the projects that are going for state reimbursement.
Well, I really have doubts about it, because there are different companies, some like...
He's not a roofing company. He's not a roofing company. He is quoting the exact square footage and the cost based upon the square footage to meet the requirements, the state mandates to get the reimbursement. So if the money's approved, he's not getting the money. What happens is we have to follow, he comes out as the architect, and then he and the engineer, they create all of the specs that are required to get the reimbursement. And then that goes out in an RFP, and we have to collect 3 sealed bids
Or more.
or more. Our requirement is 3.
Mhm.
Or you can go straight to the state bid list, which is already approved numbers by the state, and they're approved companies by the state, and there's not a lot of them, for just this project. There's all sorts of projects that are approved. Our oil tank, we bought off the state bid list for that process. And they basically bid through the state, and then the state says, you know what, lowest price, this is the company. So we have to go out to bid. To be honest with you, Elena, scary reality is it's higher than 617,000. It could also come back lower. But that's what, he has to give us a good number based upon the math and what he's seen as current happenings in the state of Connecticut that meet the requirement. This is what was confusing last year, is that $87,122 that was approved for this current budget we would not get state reimbursement for. Because their state requirement is that you tear off everything, tear off that roof, and any boards that are not right, you must tear those off too. Replace it and replace the entire roof. That 87,000
Was it partial?
was a partial portion, but it was also putting a new roof on top of what we already have. You have no guarantees that you're not gonna leak.
How about
And then
if
we
we
get
do
those
not
people.
go to those companies which are suggested by the state and try to find our own companies without counting on the reimbursement? Maybe it could be without the reimbursement, maybe we can find a better deal, the same engineering company for a different amount of money.
You could, but what will happen is you will not get, so say, what you lose is usually the thickness in the roof, and the state requirement has a certain number of years. So with this thickness of the roof, when you put it on, you're guaranteed 25 years. I'm making this up.
So we'll pay it through insurance, or we won't get the insurability.
You'll only get you'll get a 25-year roof if you go, and this is not exact, but you would get a 25-year roof through them, guaranteed. What we have on the, whatever wing it is, the upper wing on Center School. It's a Firestone roof, it's guaranteed for X number of years. You could put, just like on your home, you could put a cheaper shingle, you could put a cheaper roof on, but you won't have, you might get a 15-year warranty on it. It's only good for 15 years.
But we really don't know. How about if we just allow ourselves to go and look for those companies?
Oh, we
and
will.
just ask, like, without state involvement? Maybe we could get a much better deal.
I think the question is also, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kira.
Well, no, the question that I had related to what Lynn is saying is, the state reimbursement, to get the reimbursement, do you have to get one of the companies approved by the state?
No,
Right,
Just have
so,
to do the bidding.
you just have to do the bidding.
Yeah,
And they have to
and we're
meet
gonna
the,
do
they
that.
have to meet the requirements
right.
of the state has set.
So I think, isn't that what you're saying, that you don't have to go with the companies?
Which is suggested by the state,
Right.
so we could maybe
We-
try to find
Right.
different levels.
That's- I don't,
And that's the process that we expect to use. We expect for a project like this, that we will go out for bid.
And
Right,
who
We're
would
not gonna
know?
go, that we're not gonna go looking for somebody on the state bid list, in part because there aren't that many. An oil tank is an oil tank, there are a lot more people available to do a bid on an oil tank. For a roofing project, they're not making that.
so
Realize too, though, that they know those numbers.
Yeah.
They know if your company's gonna come and bid on our roof, and you know the requirements that we have, you know exactly what that other company that's already on the state bid list, you know what they're going to charge.
Right,
But
so
that's
what's
a
your
free
point?
market. That's a free market, means
Right.
they'll want to give us a better price.
But
So-
in every case, so even if we go out, that, I think that what we're saying is that we don't want to leave $400,000 on the table. We're not gonna get a bid that comes in at under $200,000.
But that's not, I don't think that's what
Right.
Lynn is saying. Lynn
Okay.
is saying, with the same specs, can we find from a different?
And that's, yes, and then I'm saying, yes, that's what
I
we're
just
gonna do.
wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
that's, you were not just gonna limit yourself, Steve,
No,
Phil.
no, with the
No.
same specs. We're talking about
Yeah,
choosing company on our own. So, and my other question is related to all this.
That's not what he was saying. You're
He's-
saying
he-
yes,
he
but
was
that's not what
describing
He
was
was
the
just thinking, he
options.
was just suggesting.
because we had
Okay.
just talked about it with the
Yeah.
oil tank, so
You
he was
could go
over
cheaper,
here.
you don't have to follow the
We
specs.
don't have,
No,
we
no,
can
no, but
follow the specs, but using companies outside of the state
Absolutely.
suggestions.
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
and that's the way that
And
we're
then-
planning on doing it.
And then my other, who's gonna be taking care of this process? CIP or somehow us?
That would be wonderful.
I don't know,
that's why we need a superintendent, right?
who has authority to get involved with
Won't
this
be
process?
CIP pays for it only.
Yeah.
They
That would
don't
be fair.
do it. It's Phil.
That's why.
It's
you need a
really-
It would
superintendent.
be you? Can I help you?
I,
I could really
this is
help you.
exactly why we
They're
hire,
gonna be on the facilities.
this is why we hire the architect and the engineer, to develop and make sure we have everything correct. We walked out with the oil tank meeting with all of our paperwork done. That doesn't happen often, and there's a reason why we have the architect and the engineer. So, once we get the bids, the board then decides. You have to vote on which way to go. Just like you did for service station. You said, we would like to approve service station as the project. This is no different. It has to go through the town, they have to, yeah.
I have another question that's related to this whole discussion, and that is, even though they're in separate years, and I understand that that makes perfect sense, is there an economy of scale or the potential to bid out both roofs?
Yeah.
So that you can
Unfortunately.
get some kind of 2-for-1 deal?
Yeah. I asked about that. He can't guarantee that, the architect can't, because he doesn't know which company it would be. It would depend on the company. They have all their gear a couple miles away from each other, that it might be better for them. But I just felt like, you know, I'd be asking, we would be asking, you know, CIP to put over $1 million. in
Oh, that sounds like not bad.
No, but what I'm
If you
saying
pick-
is,
if you
if
save
you're,
100,000,
you're
you
saying
cover
we have to do both roofs, and you've got money approaching $1 million,
Yeah.
or over, then it makes sense to say, what could you do for us if you get both of these?
So if we could save $100,000 by
Yeah.
doing them both in 1 year, does that make sense?
And I don't know that.
And what your answer is you have no way of knowing if you get any.
Do you have to do it in the same year? Because of the bidding process, couldn't you bid it
Oh, absolutely.
and have your
Yeah.
start date outside that
We
year?
could do both roofs in year 2.
I think the issue though is that they're leaking, and if anything, we should do them both this year.
The other option you could do, and I'm not a fan of it, but I know how big these numbers are, is you could do section by section. You could break center school into 2 sections, you could break Hall School into 3 sections. That means if you're looking for the reimbursement, that means you're paying the engineer, the architect 3 times, every time you do a section.
You
That
lose
means
whatever
you're-
economy of scale you would get from somebody from doing it
Right.
all at once by spreading it out.
It just brings the number down from 617 to 200 that they're
Yeah,
going
but that might be something that the town,
I was trying to make it more palatable, that's exactly where
I suspect it could go either way, that there might be benefits to doing them all at once and bonding it. I don't know what the threshold is for what makes sense financially to bond something versus not. So there could be I'm just saying as a hypothetical, it could make sense to do a whole bunch in 1 year and bond it, or it could make sense to spread it out further. Part of that is beyond our ask. We can put this request in and it's gonna be whatever CIP then puts their recommendation
Correct.
into the Board of Finance, and it's the Board of Finance that finalizes the number. It's not even the CIP that is, you know, approved exactly the way it is. So we can put our best recommendation forward, and then we'll see what comes back from the Board of Finance.
Well, if we go along with 617,000 for the whole school roof, and then we decide to build a new school, then 3 years after, that's like abandon the money.
Yeah, that was
It's-
gonna be my question, is
Not wrong.
what
So
You're not wrong.
facility-wise, if we were to look at our future in terms of a newer renovated school, what does that look like? So
So-
rather, do
It's a
we
good
need to
question.
be putting our energy into that rather than piecemeal trying to place these buildings back
So-
together?
I think there's an easy
Okay.
answer for it. And it was another reason to break it out into 2 years, is that, let's say we were super speedy and a decision was made in May, not gonna happen, that we wanted to recommend to do a renovation or a new school. At that point in time, this money's still just been approved. They just remove it. And even if it was in the second year, it took you a year and a half to make a decision, to get public input, to go through the whole process. You know, if you said, hey, we're gonna stay in 2 buildings, the project's in place, it's set to go. If the townsfolk decided, you know what, we are gonna build a new school, or we are going to renovate, you don't do both roofs until year 2. The money's still there. And you've gone through the process for reimbursement, but you just don't do the project.
Well,
So
you
I
can,
think the timing wise, so you're not wasting it. I thought about the same thing. I would hate to see that. We would need to work within a time frame to make sure you don't spend $500,000 on a building that you're going to heavily
That you're gonna
renovate or
demolish
abandon
To renovate.
or correct. So, but I think the time frame wise is okay.
Yeah.
This is where you might have to do some patching.
But a roof
Does that make
is
sense?
huge patching.
It took a year to do, we don't even have a oil tank yet, and we started that process last
Right.
February, I think so.
It'll take us a year for, to go for, the roof is easier, to be honest with you, the roof is easier.
You don't have to dig.
They just, because of the contamination.
But it's also, the roof has to happen during the summer because they gotta tear the whole roof off. It's not, so it would either happen this summer or the summer after. You
Right.
only have 2 windows.
And we probably would not have enough time to get it done this summer,
Right.
from this window.
But if we had this money approved, we could get the architect and the engineer started for 2 summers from now.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Right, because this vote's in May, no company's gonna commit their summer work without knowing if the project's gonna happen or not. So you would really be looking that this project would be occurring if you did it in summer of 2020.
That's with state approval,
Correct.
the reimbursement.
Correct.
We take longer than that now, wouldn't it?
No, because it would be, we would be able to probably get approval in
19, 20, well, yeah.
6 months.
They could, but,
Once it goes in May, we would be able to apply.
Okay.
So those are, I mean,
So-
I didn't hit the other project there, but it's the fiber optic cables, the 10,000. And that's, that's the balance. That's what
That's
we
what's in-
tried to, without putting forward, and honestly, I don't like high, medium, and low. I would rather have seen a 4-point scale, but I just stuck with high, medium, low to keep it simple. But that's kind of a layout of how we got to the 5-year outline. And again, it
Because
doesn't.
what you're saying is that even if it says low on here, you wouldn't have even put it on here if it wasn't necessary.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just cold.
Okay, you're not leaving, you're just out.
No, I'm
My office. You guys know he,
Okay,
why I'm wearing a sweater.
so, am I correct that we should vote on this today in order for you to take this to CIP in the coming month or 2?
Yes, this is due to CIP December 28th.
And we are not meeting again before December 28th.
Correct.
So,
And so your voting basically is connected to projects and the information you see before you. They will then decide, and this is how I would present it as our priorities, is basically what you're looking at. And, sorry, also connected to how we wrote the priorities overall on this, overall top priority summary.
yeah.
It's connected the same
Yeah,
way.
you would give them that whole package as well to
Correct.
support this.
So it would be by projects.
Okay.
And I could add, I mean, you can add in the HMS fire panel, but it wouldn't be in year 1 anyways, I think,
Yeah,
so.
I'm just saying that if you should hear something, you might want to put it in as a placeholder.
Mhm.
The only other place might be that between here and that report, you might want to write out explanatory text about the 2 pots of money that were already put in the 18-19 budget but not spent. So I know we had you add back in the 90, up to the 94, you added in the 62 in year 1 for consistency's purposes. I just want to make sure that whatever is in here is consistent with what you have on there, and that there's no confusion by someone on CIP thinking that there's not this already $149,000 that's already set aside for these projects, because there is. So even though this number is high, there's $149,000 already set aside in the current year. So I just want to put that out there, that we didn't show it in this number, so whether you show it down here at the bottom of the column of what was, I know you can't do that for the future years, but for the 1920, I'm just,
Well, if I put the 94 here, this will automatically increase. too.
Right, but I'm just saying you
Right,
might
so we
wanna
don't
put
need
the
the
149
7,000.
underneath the 773 or whatever the new number is at the bottom, the 8, whatever. Yeah, I'm just saying, I want you to
You just want me to add the
show.
62,000 to this?
Right.
Yes, and then somewhere, because these two pots of money, the 87 and the 62, are set aside and approved already. Just make note somewhere on the sheet that those two are approved, but that the rest of them in future years are not
I
yet.
think they will know that, right?
I'm just saying that it has to be consistent with the other sheet of paper too. I'm not looking at what we talked about last week, so I'm encouraging consistency between this and the other sheet.
So are you planning on presenting with this also handing out, or no?
Present any way you want.
I
No.
think this was really useful, did you?
I think
do you
it's very
so too?
useful, yeah.
Okay.
It's an
It's very
easier
good.
snapshot. I have to present the projects so they understand what they are.
Right,
Mhm.
But when you start, this was an easier way to view it
right.
and
This
know,
is very helpful.
yeah.
The years,
Yeah.
breakdown with
Where-
the years.
I mean, honestly, they're all, you can put them all in year one, but it's not real. This is probably more realistic. And this is, it matches what we've done already from our top priorities. We just hadn't done it for the medium and low.
I had
Do you want a motion?
I had two things in,
Go ahead.
just two things that I would personally like to put forward, and that is do the math so that they, they have the net
Yeah,
amount,
Yeah.
once the reimbursement happens, so they can see that that's a much smaller figure. And then I really would like the pillars to be at least medium. And I understand that sort of heat versus aesthetics, but we're not really talking aesthetics like really redoing the living room. We're talking about,
The
we're
front
talking about
entrance
the
of our-
depression factor of entering the building every day
Where would
for
you
lots
like
of people. At least medium.
it? But
So
I can
still
put it
in year,
medium.
still in year 3, but just change low to medium?
Yeah.
Is what you
I mean,
recommend?
I know it's a
know,
little
well, here
thing,
you
I
go.
just, yeah, no, I like that idea too. I actually like that.
Okay, so we're gonna get to that in a minute, because there was one recommendation for a movement of that one. Are there any other pieces that people feel strongly about moving from one year to another?
I tell the truth, I don't feel comfortable presenting it because there are so many questions. I cannot support it. And I just counted I'm not saying we don't need it. I'm saying we need it. We probably need it all. If we don't do anything else, if we don't build another school, so I kind of feel responsible for introducing, and this roof prices sounds very, very high for me, so I can, I'm not saying it's your bad, something research, no, I did not do research. It's just I cannot support because I think the roof prices are very high. I think we should try to get much lower price even over here. And I just counted, if we count all the projects which you suggested, from the low importance to the high importance, and subtract all the reimbursements, then it's going to be $1,181,380. So that's huge amount of money just to put it on the, I'm sorry, I'm not saying we don't need it, I'm saying I don't feel comfortable support it. At this point, because we have other questions about the building of a new school or whatever it is. I think before going along with this, maybe we should then lift up the question and start working on the question with the school. And if we say, hey, you know what, we can't afford it now, we don't do it, let's come back to this, and then we go to this, no?
Yeah.
So what would be your proposal to CIP? What would you want to?
My proposal is, I think those things are important, so my proposals would be, it's time to start talking about the new school. Let's take a decision, whether yes or no, but so we would have the decision and we would not waste any money, even 100,000, why to waste?
So I think what Phil had said before is that because of the timing of this, even if we propose this to CIP, we're not going to spend it right away. And therefore, if we choose to move faster on the school, it's not either or. We can move ahead with this to CIP, and we can move ahead on the school, but it does not mean that it's either or. Just because you're right that we're not going to put a huge new roof and then tear down the building, right? Nobody wants to do that. That's wasteful, and nobody's interested in that. I understand what you're saying, but the timing of how this happens. Should we not move ahead with the school, we are in a worse position than we would be otherwise, because we will have put off this deferred maintenance another year, the problems will have gotten worse, the leaks will have been worse, et cetera, and so forth. So I think what Kiara was asking is, are you proposing that we defer maintenance and not recommend any of this to CIP? Or is it just the roof part that you're
Well, it's all
arguing against?
connected.
Okay,
It's all
so it's not,
connected.
so, okay,
I will tell you that the only two things in year one that you have potential to, if you did renovate or build new, you could take the phone system with you.
I agree with that, that's what I wanted to say,
Because the-
unless we invest into something what could be taken with us.
The phone is strictly, it's all the products and programs.
But
So-
we already talked about that last
Yeah.
time, right?
And those
How
if
much
you-
do you have to?
And
Okay,
also, if you say
so-
you approve it, sorry, if you say they do approve it, they put money away. It means we have a bulk of money which is not used. That's not a good use of money. If they put away money, we keep the money, then we decide, we keep it for 2 years,
Oh,
and we
it's in
say.
the same, it's in the same, it's
it's for that
I don't
project.
think it's reasonable
not
to
just
It's in the
fine.
general reserve. It's not like it sits someplace on its own, it's in the general fund.
For the town.
That's right.
And it'll be used somewhere else in the town if we don't use it.
So the pillar, it's a smaller example, but the pillars, the 17,800 was approved already and not done, and they said, no, we're gonna move it back. And then that was put back in. So it was just, it was sitting in that general reserve fund.
Okay, so then, then I agree, if something what we can take, I would support it fully.
Okay.
With the roof, I think maybe we can try to find somebody else and just, I am volunteering, really volunteering, to get involved in all those requirements, engineering requirements, and find somebody, some other company. If I can be allowed to volunteer for that, I would just negotiating, I would help it, it's my job, I used to work with it, so, but that's a high price.
Okay,
That's
so
my suggestion.
okay, Tracy, did you have your hand up?
Well, I just
Are you ready
wanted to, because I walked out for a second, and I missed part of the explanation back to Elena, anybody, but when you're doing a project, isn't it better to go on a higher estimate, so you have, this isn't when we're making the bid and saying this is how much we're gonna pay. When you're making a plan and a proposal, isn't it better to go higher with an estimate that's going to cover any cost that might go, than what, and have leftover that goes back into the general fund, than to go lower and then
And
be
not have
stuck
enough
and not have enough where we couldn't have paid for the boiler, we couldn't pay for this roof?
I think
I'm in
that's
a renovation project right now in my house. We have to think higher because you don't know what you're gonna have when you open that roof. You don't know what's gonna happen when you dig that, along that foundation wall and find out it's crumbling. I mean, seriously, if this is real life for me.
Yeah,
So,
but didn't you say that there's a cushion in there, in that money?
There's-
20%.
Okay, so.
and we're not talking about doing it at this moment, we're
Right.
saying we're planning ahead to ask for the money so that my student, anybody's kids, grandkids here are not being put out of their building because the roof collapsed because we didn't do anything while we're waiting to decide if we're building or not.
Okay, so we've had opinions on both sides expressed about what's here. This is a fairly complex issue in budget. You've spent a fair amount of time last meeting as well as at this meeting giving us more detail on heating and windows and roofs than any of us would have thought we would want to do for fun and as a volunteer job. So I will make a motion on the table, and we'll see if anybody seconds it, to accept the current CIP plan with the edit to the CES heating project to show the amount that was included, so the one edit that we mentioned. As it stands here, to recommend this to CIP for them to then consider. So that's my motion that's on the table, and if there's a second, we can then,
Second,
okay.
can I, for a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Is there any way we could move the pillars into the year that they're already in?
I'm sorry.
Why move them out another year? if the money's already in 2021? Can we put them in the pink column?
Okay, so a friendly amendment,
And then mediums, though.
quite honestly, when you're looking at 675, the
I know.
17 is small beans, and I would accept that friendly amendment to move the 17,800 from year 3 to year 2, where it was
Make it
already,
medium, right?
and make it a medium priority where it was already approved in the last CIP budget.
Sorry, could you
Okay.
repeat that?
So. Okay, so the amendment on the table, including the friendly amendment, is that we accept the Wellington Public Schools CIP priority map 5-year recommendation to CIP with 2 edits, as we stated earlier, of moving the 17,800 HMS front entrance repairs to show them as a medium priority in year 2 for 2021. And to change in the CES heating project to reflect the 62,000 that was already set aside in 18-19 in the column, so instead of saying 32, it says 94,000. And then we can reflect those amounts that were already set aside and can, you know, those can make sure that nothing's inconsistent. Second, you got that? Okay. Is anybody confused about the motion that's on the table? Okay. So now we have something concrete to push back upon. If anybody else would like to make a motion or change this in any way, or make a case for why we should change one of these things, I would open that now.
Well, to some extent, I agree with the lady. There's a considerable amount of money that's going into the first year. And historically, the CIP has never given us, $1 million.
And they may not this year.
That's right. And it's a substantial amount of money. And as the lady, she has concerns about, going out to bid, you have to pick the best 3 or 4, or whatever it is, and pick the lowest one. But it's still going to be in this range, really, because they all know what it costs and what the bidding is, pretty much. I kind of support, what you have here. You've done a magnificent job of putting it together, but I don't know whether I go along with it, because I know that the CIP is not going to approve it. They're going to push it forward.
So
The reason,
So basically, I probably won't vote for it, and I won't vote against it.
the reason I felt comfortable moving forward with this the way it stands is that this is really a show of the needs that the buildings have and where our priorities are. This is only a recommendation to 2 other committees for them to understand our thinking. I have the feeling that they're going to, spend even more time than we have, taking it apart, putting back it together, thinking about other options. But I think that this reflects accurately our need in the buildings.
My
So
guess is
that was
that-
where I felt that this was what we needed to move it to the next layer of discussion.
Well, that's your opinion.
That's what I
You're not
said.
speaking for the whole board.
No, I didn't say that. I said that was my opinion. I said that at the start.
But anyway, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had thought you were finished.
No, I wasn't.
I apologize. I did
No, I
not
was
mean
just
to
going to say,
interrupt you.
and we mentioned this before, we're submitting this, as our proposal, as a board,
Mhm.
if we vote it through.
Right.
When the CIP gets out, I'm pretty sure that they'll revamp it, will they some,
Oh,
they don't,
yeah.
they don't,
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't, they don't take these as they are.
They haven't in previous
And I don't
years.
know which ones they would keep, they'd probably keep the lowest numbers involved. But in the case of the roof, and as Ann said, with the building that may take place, we're embarking on renovating or putting new roofs on both buildings at a time when really we may tear one down or, or build a new building. And that's a concern of mine too. We're putting so much money into this, and there's a possibility that we may not even own those buildings.
Okay, wait, Kiara had her hand up first, and I just want to make sure that we do that, and then you can do a second.
So my question, let's say that we don't approve this proposal.
I didn't say that.
Well, you said you're not gonna vote for it.
I told them I'm not voting against it.
Or for it. I
Well,
thought you said,
I haven't voted yet.
oh, okay, I thought, I'm sorry.
You may change my vote.
All right, well,
Matter
no.
of fact, I'm thinking of changing it.
What I'm thinking of is, my concern, and I expressed it earlier, is can we split it up? So do one section at a time, right, like Phil said. So that's also a possibility that we could change this proposal and split it up into 3 years. But I think it's still important for Phil to explain what are the ramifications of that. So if you split a big job into threes, then the total cost is gonna be higher. So, I mean, I am okay with either. I think that's something that maybe the town should make the decision on, because it's a huge expense. But I'm not sure if we vote against this, then what's the alternative? So what are we proposing instead? That's what I would ask both of you. So to you, if I interpreted you correctly, you would just take the roof off altogether. Would you do the same, or would you think that breaking it up into 3 parts would be a more palatable option?
Well, the superintendent has broken it up. I mean, the blue is just one part of this.
No, I'm thinking the
CIP.
617,000.
I mean, usually you spread them out and they're all pushed forward into the next year.
But do you think we
And
should
this can
propose
be-
that to begin with?
There are other ways of handling it. You can do, like, Phil wants to do both roofs, which it makes sense. Or you could take one roof and do it 1 year, and then 2 years from that, do the other roof. Or do it piecemeal, There are all kinds of options.
So what would you like?
This is what he's recommending.
So if we are not voting on this, what would be the alternative? He would need direction from us, right? What should we propose? If we don't like to propose the 617,000 for year 1, then what would be the alternative? What would we propose? Not do the roof at all until we decide on the school? That's one option. And just fix it up? Or should we do one portion at a time? One section of the roof 1 year, and another section another year, until we decide what to do with the schools? That's my question. What would be the
I'm not an
alternative?
expert on roofs.
So you want to take it all, so if you don't approve this, what would you want to approve?
Yeah, well,
I didn't say I was going to approve it.
I said, I said
we
I'm
have,
not.
we have a motion on the table.
Yeah, but
We have a motion on the
No, but
table.
it's important
If
to
the- if
discuss. I
someone-
know it's 9:20,
So,
but
so
it's
you put
important to
the
discuss it.
question out, if someone would like to make an amendment, a proposal to move something on or off the table, I will accept a motion for any amendments to this that are concrete. So you kind of asked that in
All
a
right,
generic
I was
way,
gonna say something.
but are you making a motion?
Not a motion, but
Okay.
I'd like to do.
There is a motion on the floor. We cannot go into other discussions about what's positive or negative about other alternatives. You can make a motion for an amendment to this, and then if there's a second, then we can vote on that amendment.
Okay,
Okay, that's where we are.
so, I make a motion to keep up fixing up the roof without putting big money in it in both schools until we have a decision about building, whether we build or we don't build the schools. That's my motion. And two, we can move on with the rest of the projects which could be moved into the new building if we decide to build a new building. That's my motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Well,
I-
you restate the motion.
I know.
I'm not sure I
I
can.
know.
I'm sorry.
It was
Okay.
Okay, the motion would have to say
So
how much money you
motion on
take
This is
down.
kind of a point of order.
Okay,
Yeah.
point of order, yes.
Go
The
ahead.
motion on the floor that you made
Yes, sorry.
was to approve this. I made a friendly amendment, which is different than an amendment after
Right.
there's, I mean, a
Correct.
motion within a motion.
And I
That's
accept, and I
at odds
accept,
with Robert's rules.
and I accepted your
It was a
friendly
friendly
amendment.
motion.
You, yes, mine was.
It was a friendly
accepted
amendment, I
as-
accepted it, and we
But to
restated the
now have
amendment.
another motion on the
Yeah.
floor
So
before that
it-
vote is.
There
Do we
wasn't
have-
any objection
I don't think
to
we
the
have,
friendly motion.
we don't have to vote on
I
the
understand that.
friendly amendment.
I'm saying, until we vote on your original motion, it's, you
No,
don't
an
have
amendment,
another
amendment
motion.
would come before my motion. That her amendment is not a friendly amendment, so we would have to vote on that to change the motion
Is that
before I
right?
go.
Okay. I stand
Yeah.
corrected. I
Okay.
thought you. I thought
Yeah,
was
so we
a
don't have to
motion,
vote
you
on
had
the
to
friendly
vote on it
amendment
before
because
that.
I accepted it.
I
So-
second the motion.
Take that out.
Okay. Can you restate it? Okay, can we ask her to restate it before you second it? Okay. Can you restate it
Yes.
more concretely and specifically and slowly so that
Yes.
our per person typing can get it correctly?
I make a motion to remove from the proposal spending for the CIP Pride project, to remove whole school roof project in the amount 617,300, and central school roof project in the amount of 453,000. Oh, that's in here too. Yes. And then I'm just looking what else could be postponed. Can you say in the other projects?
You can make whatever motion you want. The motion so far is to remove the HMS roof and the CES roof from this
Mhm.
proposal entirely.
And the other projects which cannot be taken into the new school building if we decide to move on with building a new school.
So in that case, the other ones that would be impacted is the CES heating project, the CES fiber cable, and many other projects in future years. Are you proposing that
Yes.
we take everything off of this except for ones we can move?
Yes. Yes, that's my proposal. Including even parking lot. Why do we have to put 25,000 in the parking lot if we're gonna leave it in a whole school? In 2 years or in 3 years?
So it
if we
might be
go along?
easier if you actually said what you would leave on.
I know, sorry.
Okay?
I don't want to offend
I
anybody.
just wanted you to be specific so
Yeah.
that we know if someone wants to second that motion and then we know what we're voting on. Unless it's specific, we cannot know what you're proposing.
Well, I think in reality, what can we take with us? It's only cameras and phone systems.
Pillars? No.
AC, if we do AC projects, could they be moved?
No, those are part of the buildings.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I understand that it's all needed. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
you did a great job, so it's important. I understand it. It's just,
Okay, what
So-
else would you leave on? So you
That's
leave
it.
on
I
the
would- I would
phone and the
just-
security cameras.
I would just, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I would just leave security cameras and phone systems, I'm sorry.
Okay, so
Until we have a decision.
we have
With
a
the
motion that has been moved, but not yet seconded, to remove everything off of the CIP map with the exception of the district phone system for $69,000 and the HMS security cameras for $45,620, both in year one.
Yes.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay, we have a second from Herb. Are you up to date? Okay.
I have 2 points I want to make. One is, as I've only been on CIP for 1 year up to now, but this is a roadmap, and what the CIP does is a roadmap. Nothing in it is binding in terms of real spending. So the value of this document and the value of presenting it to CIP and the town is to show what needs there are in the school buildings according to the superintendent and the Board of Ed. So taking all of the elements out of it is leaving the CIP with not a full deck in terms of what the issues are. My second point is related to that, and that is, doesn't showing some of this clear and present danger of leaky roofs and the expense of them feed into a momentum that might evolve from the CIP and other town boards, the Board of Finance, about the speed at which we want to look at other options like building a new school. It's part of the, to me, it's part of the process that's crucial to have on the table. Whether the spending actually happens, there's a whole lot more process that happens before that by people that have reasonable intelligence and are volunteers for these boards set up to evaluate them. So I really think kneecapping this document doesn't help us in any way, shape, or form as a board looking out for the educational health of the town and its future.
Okay.
I agree with that. Can you withdraw my motion? What do
Our
you think?
parliamentarian, our parliamentarian, can she withdraw her motion if it's already been seconded?
What do you think? Can we?
Okay,
That's okay?
Herb nodded.
I understand what you said.
Okay, yes,
That's okay.
you can do it.
Where you're second.
But I may not withdraw mine. I think both of us do it.
You do this to
Sorry.
pleasure me.
I'm sorry, then I'll keep it.
It's up to you.
Would you, wait, no, please let us finish this first.
What are you going to do?
What do you want to do, Elena?
No, I understand. If the whole purpose of it is just as Stephanie says, that we just inform that those are the needs. Maybe we just remove the numbers somehow? No?
So there's a motion on the table, you can either remove your motion or leave it and we will vote on it.
Can I make a point of clarification?
Yes.
For-
Yes?
For
No.
Elena.
No. If you have a point, not, if it's a clarification about the motion itself, but not about, you can't go into.
We can.
I want to support what Stephanie said, that this is a beautiful document about why we need a new school. If we take away all these problems with our schools, we're taking away part of our rationale for wanting a new school. And it's throwing the flowers around. And as Stephanie said, half of these things aren't even going to happen. I mean, it's, you know, they may not, there may be other priorities. This is just kind of a roadmap, but Stephanie, I love your idea about this is our rationale for the new school. These are reasons we need to.
I not really, I'm not sure that I am for the new school. I'm just saying we need to have a decision before we move on. That's it, you know, with all this.
So if I hear no further conversation about this motion.
Okay. Let's just vote and see if it
Okay.
goes, let's
Okay.
simplify.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to remove all of the items except for the two I mentioned, the phone system and the security cameras.
Yeah.
Those in favor of removing everything on the CIP except those two items, please signify by saying, wait, am I getting this right?
Yes.
Those people who are in favor of taking everything off and leaving only those two, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay. Nay.
And
Any opposed? I mean, any abstentions? Okay, the motion fails. Okay. So we are back to the original motion with the friendly amendment. Are there any additional questions before we move to a vote on that? Okay. So the motion on the floor with the friendly amendment is to adopt the priority map as it was presented with the movement of the pillars from year 3 to year 2 and making them a medium priority and reflecting the 62,000 in the heating project in the amount in column 1. So that's the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed to that motion signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Those who are abstaining,
Absolutely.
so we have a nay and an abstention, but a majority carries the vote to move this to CIP at their meeting on the 28th. Thank you for your patience. That was complicated, but I think that we all have a better understanding now of what this looks like and what its usefulness is for in the process. So thank you all for your patience and understanding and your help with the parliamentary process. We learned something new about parliamentary process. That was the last official item under old business. Next on the agenda is present to speak, and we still have one person who I'm very afraid is going to say something about what our process was. But we would love to hear, as always, from the public. Please recognize yourself.
Can I stay seated?
You may stay seated since you don't have to peer over the crowd in front of you.
Mike Choi, teacher at Hall Memorial School. As WEA co-president, I'd like to thank Superintendent Stevens for including the WA in the T-Val process. We look forward to getting started on that and to hopefully developing a good document so that you guys can see it and we can update our process. And then speaking as teacher at Hall Memorial School, we do have the pep rally coming up the Friday before break, which is, I believe, the 21st. Is the Friday before break. It is a half day. I'm thinking the pep rally is going to start around 11. Normally it's not really open to parents and whatnot, but I would encourage if any board members would like to come and see our basketball teams in a mixed scrimmage, and then maybe some fun knockout games from students in the school to come on down at around 11 to HMS. That's it.
When is the concert?
Winter concerts, yeah, thank you. Winter concerts are tomorrow and Thursday. The 5th, 6th grade concert starts at 6:30 tomorrow, and the 7th, 8th grade concert is 6:30 on Thursday. Thank you.
That's the 13th.
Yes, the 13th for 7th, 8th, the 12th for 5th, 6th.
Thank you, sir. No one else? No? Okay. Board comments. So I'm trying to mix this up so that we all have a chance to go first and last. So Steph, I'm going to start with you on board comments and go clockwise.
Okay. I appreciate the preparation that Phil did for us to have a lively discussion on priorities for the schools and the learning experience. Thanks.
Okay, Ann?
I want to congratulate Holly on her retirement and wish her well on her retirement.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank Phil for putting it all together, because it's a huge job, I understand it, but that's why we're here together, so we would discuss it, we would listen to each other, and I still could not agree with this, but it's too complicated to make a little here, little there. But I appreciate that I agree, we do need to know what's there, what needed to be done. So thank you. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Phil.
All right, and I have to say the same thing. Thank you and the other people that who collaborated with you, the custodians and the principal. And thank you, Herb, and thank you, Steph, for articulating your views on the veterans and what you just said. You made this member over here kind of change your mind, so that was good.
Well, that's where we should be flexible.
Right.
Okay. Herb?
Well, I want to congratulate Holly again on her retirement. She's been with us a long time. She's done a marvelous job, especially that area. We'll miss her even though we got a new person who's very qualified. I want to thank you for your budget, presenting us, giving budget information at each meeting. It's very helpful. And also, thank you for your work on the CIP. There's a lot of work. I looked at the spreadsheet and the way you presented it, and we'll see where it goes with the CIP group. Also, the students, that was a nice touch.
Yes.
As a board, we don't get that very often, but it's nice to see them here, and I got a report, got an award, from the superintendent's award, I guess it was. Yeah, that was very nice.
Tracy?
Also,
Oh, sorry,
I drive by Hall School all the time, and the front of Hall School has to be spruced up a little bit. The one thing I noticed, I go by there once or twice a week, and every day, and I don't do it intentionally, I just, out of the corner of my eye, I go by, because I don't want to look for anything. The sign that's out front there is a blank sign. And every day I've gone by, there's nothing there. All I see is the building, and I figure, there's nothing going on here.
Can you respond to that?
It should be something like soccer
Can you
match
respond to that
or
after the meeting?
or
Okay.
assembly program, or, a happy holiday, or something, But I would like to see that. It would make me very happy, probably tomorrow. When I go by there.
Go out there, right?
This is board comment, you're allowed to make whatever wishes or pleas you'd like.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm not on the curriculum committee, but I was wondering, the curriculum, is that on the website?
Old items.
It's not there yet?
There's
The
only the updated items are not.
Yeah. But
Because that haven't been officially approved.
You have to approve them.
Right.
I think, as a board member, I'd like to see the curriculum of, I don't know, all the curriculums would be quite a bit, but they should be up there, so you can take a look at them anyway. And the other thing is, are they using books in social studies or in English or
Textbooks?
textbooks? They do?
No.
They're not using textbooks anymore?
Not
Just a
no.
little
We didn't.
thin books that are,
Depends. It depends on which class, which grade.
what are they doing?
Can we hold that for
No, I-
another
no, I-
conversation? I realize
I
this
want a
is board
textbook.
comment.
I want a textbook, that's what I'm leading up to. Is there any way of getting a textbook? There's no social studies textbook. There's no math textbook. No,
Some, for
every
sure, yes.
newspaper. Okay.
If there are other requests for additional materials you want,
Well, I was
we
wondering
can
if
certainly,
I just want to know if we're using textbooks anymore in the school, that's all.
and the answer
It's
is
a legitimate
a little
question.
here, it is, and the answer is a little here, a little there, but not everywhere.
You'll
So
get presentation.
it will have a presentation on that in the future. And if there's something more specific that you want for a particular grade or a particular class, we
Yeah,
can
I
go
was
into more
wondering what the
detail
con-
when,
I was
the-
interested in the content of these social studies programs.
in a particular grade? Or across all the grades, or just the middle school?
Seventh and eighth.
Okay, seventh and
Standards.
eighth, okay. Okay. Additional board comment?
No, I'll hold them to next meeting.
Okay. Tracy?
I reiterate everything that's been said about all of the, so far, plus I'd just like to add that I appreciate, as a fairly new member to the board, the ability of our board to have somewhat heated discussion, but still have laughter amongst it, and then with a positive note.
Well, again, I would congratulate Connor and Olivia. It's nice to have students here, even if they didn't stay for the whole meeting. We love them out. And I want to apologize for Herb for interrupting him not once, but at least twice in one
You can do
meeting.
it as much as you want.
Well, I'm never offended if you push back and say I wasn't finished. It comes from being a fast talker myself that I'm often like ready to start before you finish. So I will eventually catch all of your cues and learn to wait until you finish speaking. Maybe I need like a hand signal like I'm done now or something. That might help me.
Just do what you do.
But thank all of you for your patience as we work through these issues. I think we've come to a decision that we can all respect and move forward and let Phil do his job while we're all on holiday vacation. So we will not see each other until January, so happy holidays to all of you and to the staff and families in Willington. And the meeting, I move to adjourn the meeting. Okay, thank you.